I can't remember it myself. I'm a little rusty on it.
I'll hum it for you.
There we go. I don't know why it does that sometimes and then doesn't other times. Whatever. Technology. How is everyone doing? Okay. We got a bunch of stuff today. Let's do the intro really quickly. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you might be watching this. My name is Josh, and welcome to my channel. On here, we talk news, politics, and current events. It's Monday. What is today anyway? April the 3rd, 2023. A fine day here in Denver, Colorado. Rather sunny, a little bit breezy. Clouds are a little mixed, but overall, a nice day out. Anyway, all of that aside, preliminaries all aside, we got a couple topics today. So first, I want to go over. I want to read a political article. In Florida, Ron DeSantis has signed a bill to what's the word I'm looking? Let's see, what's the actual bill? Oh, where is it? Oh, it's wrong political article. Has signed a bill that makes it now easier to carry in the state of Florida, repealing their registration. What the heck? No. Ungroup. Stupid. Repealing their registration requirements, so that should be fun. We're gonna kind of talk about that a little bit, and then gonna kind of get into some of the normal topics for the day. In Virginia, at the VCU college down in Richmond, there was a pro-life event going on that was protested by pro-choice college kids, and it seems like some hullabaloo happened, so we'll take a look at that. I want to take a look at, also, we'll kind of transition into talking about Students for Life, a nonprofit organization advocating for pro-life positions, or what they actually are, anti-choice positions. And then we're gonna kind of stick. We're gonna be spending a lot of time on colleges today, because we're going to then transition into Michael Knowles apparently talking. I guess sat down with some protesters, sat down with some people at a recent college visit he was at, and ostensibly had a one-on-one conversation with some of the people. We'll kind of take a look at that, and after that we got a Jubilee video to watch that's also going to be centered around transition and minors and stuff like that. So, but before we do all of that, I want to talk about really quickly, kind of get in, I don't know if it's really an update, but I want to highlight this really quickly, which is load. There we go. East Palestine. We talked about East Palestine a little bit, when it first happened, and ever since we kind of just discussed kind of where that community has been left after all of this. But apparently, 7 CDC workers apparently fell, ill while investigating the train derailment. Now, if you've been keeping up with the story in East Palestine, there has been a pretty consistent message from Norfolk Southern that the water is clean, the air is clean, their job in terms of cleanup is basically done, which is a bit concerning to the people who are living there, who have been, since the derailment, consistently reporting all sorts of different headaches, migraine symptoms, stuff like that. So let's take a look, because it seems like if the CDC, I don't know why we're only hearing about this now, but let's take a read. In the days following the February 3rd train derailment in East Palestine, a group of investigators fell ill while looking into the chemical exposure of residents. 15 investigators from the Center for Disease Control Prevention and the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registration, ATSDR, wow, that's an acronym, are wrapping up their probe of chemical exposure Monday in the East Palestine area. But just a few weeks ago, 7 of those investigators themselves may have experienced the symptoms of exactly what they were looking into. The agency confirmed confirmed to the dispatch. On March 26th, 7 investigators reported feeling sick and said they experienced a sore throat, headache, coughing, and nausea, according to the CDC. The symptoms are consistent with what some residents and responders have reported in surveys the CDC has been conducting in and around the town that sits near the Ohio and Pennsylvania border. Symptoms resolved for most of the investigators the same afternoon they first noticed them, and everyone resumed work on survey data collection within a day, according to the CDC. The investigators who became ill have not reported ongoing health effects, the agency said. News of the illness were first reported by CNN. The CDC said its assessment of chemical exposure from the train derailment in East Palestine was set to end Monday. As of Thursday, 704 community residents completed surveys on potential chemical exposure. Of those, 532 surveys were conducted in Ohio, and 172 were completed in neighboring Pennsylvania. First responders completed 318 surveys, according to the CDC. Quote, over the next couple of months, CDC and ATSDR will work with the health department to analyze data and share results, CDC spokesperson said via email. EPA teams remain on the ground and support response efforts. CDC and ATSDR will continue to respond to requests for remote technical assistance for as long as needed. The derailment, which has received national attention, occurred when multiple rail cars of an eastbound Norfolk Southern freight train came off the tracks in East Palestine. Let's see. At least 5 different chemicals were carried in rail cars that derailed, according to a letter from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to Norfolk Southern. The chemicals included vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, ethylexyl acrylate, ethylene glycol, monobutyl ether, and isobutylene. Jesus Christ. Vinyl chloride, which is a chemical used to make PVC pipe, is considered a carcinogen. Exposure to vinyl chloride is associated with an increased risk of rare form of liver cancer, as well as brain and lung cancers. Lovely. Burning it, which was part of a controlled release plan used by state and local officials to avoid an explosion that could have sent shrapnel from the metal tank cars hurling into buildings, creates a toxic gas, phosphogene, and hydrogen chloride. The gases were used as weapons during World War I. Jesus Christ. Despite evacuations, residents of East Palestine told the dispatch that its sister papers in Ohio that were experiencing a variety of illness once they returned home. Some reported rashes and headaches, while others said they began suffering from nausea. Testing of the air and waterways near East Palestine has largely come up clean and even prompted politicians such as Governor Mark DeWine to visit residents and drink their tap water with them. Still, locals have questioned the testing being done. Why are people getting sick if there's nothing in the air or water? One woman shouted during a town hall meeting mid-February in East Palestine High School. Okay, let's address a little bit this up front. So the testing that they're referring to, let's keep in mind, was not done by the CDC, was not done by the EPA, was not done by any governmental organization. The testing that has come up clean has been done by a third-party testing company, paid for by Norfolk Southern, which, while I can't look at their results and I can't look at their testing, and I don't have the scientific background to be able to assess that testing, I do think that it's rather convenient, rather interesting that the company that Norfolk Southern pays to give them results gave them the best results Norfolk Southern could have received, which was that their cleanup, their spills had no, negative outcomes. That there isn't anything that Norfolk Southern or the people in this community should be worried about. I think, and you can call me a conspiracy theorist on this one, that is bullshit. And I think that the company that tested for Norfolk Southern probably, at the very least, have a financial incentive to give them results that are more favorable to them. At the end of the day, Norfolk Southern is their client. So keep that in mind. Secondly, we have to remember the reason why this derailment happened is twofold. One, because the Trump administration repealed, certain regulations on, shipping, in terms of shipping regulations during their administration. The second part of that is the Biden administration never thought to put those back into place. So when I say that, when anybody brings up Biden and brings up Trump and is saying like, oh, well, this is the Trump administration's fault. That is true. It's also the Biden administration's fault, because at the end of the day, when Trump, deregulates, takes away these regulations, creates the environment for something like this to happen, and Biden and his administration do fuck all to respond to that, to put it back to the way it should be, to do literally anything, that falls on Biden then. That falls squarely in Biden's lap. So this is not a Democrat-Republican thing. This is the leaders of our nation don't really give a shit. They don't give a shit about the people of East Palestine. They don't give a shit about their health. They don't give a shit about how they're feeling, if they're feeling sick, if they're feeling nauseous. They don't care. Mark DeWine goes down there, drinks some water, because he knows if he drinks, a glass of some of this bad water, he'll be fine. These people who live in this community are going to be breathing that air, are going to be drinking that water for years, destroying, having whatever effect it might have on them, compounded over many years. So, when it comes to East Palestine, I hope it's a reminder to people, at the very least, that there is a role for government and there is a role to regulation. People, I find, get really, really in their feelings and get really anxiety ridden when they hear regulation. I had somebody in my comment section recently complaining to me about government control and how, any kind of, any expansion of the government's role in our society is, big government is all of, all the nonsense, right? But this is why we need government. This is why we need entities like our representative government to, be able to push back on companies like entities like Norfolk Southern. Not even specifically corpos. I mean, any kind of group that is larger than any, what's the small town of East Palestine supposed to do? Hire some lawyers? Norfolk Southern can bury them in lawyers, but they can't do that to the federal government. They can't do that to the local Ohio government or the local Pennsylvania government. So, when we talk about the role of government in this country, it is first and foremost always a choice. We are always choosing what the government is able to set the boundaries, what they're able to keep safe from us. That's always the way it is. Government is how we decide how our society is organized. If you want less of it, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want more of it, there's also nothing wrong with that. It's all about having the right amount of government in each individual case. But either way, the Biden administration needs to do a lot more. This community is absolutely suffering. We're not going to know the effects of any of this stuff for probably 10 years. And, what are we going to do when an entire community comes, down stricken with, all sorts of forms of cancer? What do we do with that information is what's really key. But, anyway. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Oh, right. DeSantis. Okay. So we talked a lot about guns last week. I think I might have put out 2 whole videos on guns pertaining to the tragedy that occurred on Monday. And I laid out a number of regulations, a number of changes that we could have. I think, whatever I listed, if we have some of those, somebody said that we already have 1 or 2 of the regulations that I proposed, or that I mentioned. And, To which I'd say then we clearly need to be utilizing that more. But either way, these are all things, the conversation around guns is, I think, always a evolving one, and is always a nuanced one. There's a balance to be struck when it comes to guns. What we are seeing, unfortunately, though, is and we've seen it for a long time, is the molding of guns around the cultural aspect of them. And a part of that is manifests in the way that certain senators, certain congresspeople, certain governors sign or don't sign certain pieces of legislation. To which we look at this one down in Florida, where Ron DeSantis, I guess, repealed the state permitting process. It seems like so let's kind of like go through this together. For the record, I want to state immediately, I think I am supportive of permitting for firearms. Plain and simple, you have to get a permit to own a car, to drive a car. I think it's pretty reasonable to have to, apply and earn a permit for owning a firearm. It doesn't need to be incredibly difficult. I just think there should be a process there. And also the government should know where all of the 40 million guns that are in the country, where all of them are. Obviously you won't catch every one of them. People will not register some of their firearms, but at the very least, you get a much clearer idea of where they are. But all right, Governor Ron DeSantis on Monday. Keep in mind, Monday, a week after the shooting in Nashville. Monday signed a measure that will allow Florida residents to carry guns without a state permit, but falls short of what some gun right activists sought. DeSantis signed the legislation behind closed doors in the governor's office, with news of the bill signing being released first to Fox News. He had pledged during an appearance last week at a Georgia gun store that he would act quickly on the proposal, which passed the Florida legislature on Thursday. So keep in mind, if this was something that the general population was in favor of, not requiring people to have a state permit with them when they carry, if this was so popular with the general public, then why was there not a big show of this? Why was there not, why do we not have all the pictures and, everyone circling around while he signs this bill? Makes you kind of wonder. It's almost like they know how unpopular this stuff is. And any reasonable person would say, wait, no, we had a fine system. You having to carry your firearm permit allows you to carry your weapon with you. That makes sense. Now that's one less thing that, you can walk around. You don't have to be permitted. For anybody that's always concerned about people carrying illegal guns or criminals or whatever, now the police cannot distinguish between a law-abiding gun owner and a non-law-abiding gun owner. That's just the way it is. If nobody has to have a permit, you can't figure out who's illegally carrying, who's not illegally carrying. There's no way to figure that out. You don't need a permission slip from the governor to be able to exercise your constitutional rights. Well, is that how that works? It's funny. It's actually funny because Ron DeSantis and a lot of Republicans are in favor of what's the word I'm looking for? Of voting restrictions, of standardized, you have to have this kind of ID or this kind of license or any of that sort of stuff. I find it really interesting because the problem and the reason I bring that up is mainly because it's a double standard. They say that you shouldn't have to do, you should be allowed to carry, do whatever. You don't need to prove that you have that right to participate in the Second Amendment. You don't have to do anything. But for whatever reason, for voting, they seem to want to erect barriers in front of that. Now I'm the opposite. I think voting should be open to everybody, and I think guns should be open to most people. There should be some regulations and restrictions, but I can justify that by simply saying, well, being a part of the democracy, being able to vote in your democracy, in your state, in your country, and whatever, is valuable in its maximalist state. Owning firearms is not valuable in its maximal state. Owning firearms has no bearing on the direction or safety of the country. It just doesn't. We find that the more permissive laws are in states, the more gun violence that there is, which, by the way, we're going to look at a bit. But anyway, Florida becomes the 26th state to allow residents to carry concealed weapons without a permit. The new legislation gives DeSantis another victory to tout as he gears up for an expected presidential campaign, which he would be really fucking stupid to actually go through with. Here in the free state of Florida, government will not get in the way of law-abiding Americans who want to defend themselves and their families. Again, too bad you can't tell the difference between law-abiding and not law-abiding, said State Senator Jay Collins, a Tampa Republican and sponsor of the legislation. While DeSantis and other Republican backers have described the legislation as constitutional carry, supporters of gun rights have repeatedly called on GOP legislators to go further by allowing people to carry guns openly. Let's be honest, they want to go back to like the old West days because they all watch way too many Westerns. This is the case where gun rights activists, I think, are wildly out of step with actual gun owners. DeSantis has said said he supports open carry, but top Republicans in the state Senate, including Senate President Kathleen Passidomo, oppose such a policy. Passidomo has cited the opposition of many of Florida's sheriffs as a prime reason for her stance. Yeah, if everybody's armed, that makes the police's job that much harder. It makes actual like police work incredibly difficult. The governor is weak if he cannot even get his own supermajority legislator to add part of his agenda, which is open carry, to the permitless carry bill, said Matt Collins, a gun rights supporter and former lobbyist for gun rights groups. It's embarrassing for him, it's failed leadership, and it hurts his chances in the upcoming. Goddamn, dude, you can't win with these people. Democrats, meanwhile, sharply criticized the approval of the gun measure. Hiding behind closed doors and standing shoulder to shoulder with the NRA, Ron DeSantis just signed a legislation that can make it easier for criminals to carry guns, which is true. Democratic National Committee Chair Jamie Harrison said in a statement, DeSantis knows this legislation could be dangerous for Florida families, and that's why he signed this bill with none of his usual produced fanfare. That's certainly an explanation. Florida law currently makes it a felony if someone carries a concealed weapon without a permit. There are more than 2.6 million people with concealed weapon licenses who must go through training and a background check. The new law, which takes effect on July 1st, does not end the permitting program, but instead makes it optional. So it ends it. I mean, let's be clear, it's still there, but why the fuck would you, like, you have to pay for all of that. Why would you do it? Making it optional is essentially getting rid of it, because no person is going to go through the process of getting their permit, which again costs money, when they can just buy guns and carry them. But it is just, there's no reason. There's no reason why you'd ever do that. Yeah, this is as people on Twitter like to yell about. This is what we call a shadow ban. You know, the new law. Oh, right. State Senator Lauren Book, the Senate Democratic leader, also faulted Republicans for pushing ahead with what she called a nonsensical, reckless policy due to the governor's political ambitions. Yeah. So I want to take a look really quickly, because keep in mind, this is kind of always the debate, right? Of what are the how many steps does somebody need to take to purchase a firearm and to then carry that firearm and have it with them at all times? What are the processes for that? What are the restrictions? To give like a few good, some examples, you'll have in growing up in Virginia, right? To own a firearm, you had to pass a background check, and if you wanted to conceal carry, you would have to pass a concealed carry licensing course that usually covers a lot of different states, and then And only then can you conceal carry. And I don't believe in Virginia at the time, at least when I was living there was no option to open carry. There was no option to walk around with your gun on your hip, like, like you're in the Wild West. That hasn't been a thing in this country for quite a long time. We kind of figured out that when people just openly broadcast their firearm ownership to each other, when arguments break out, they get very dangerous very quickly. So, so that's kind of a part of why, we develop concealed carry and open carry as legal terminology and as legal standards. But either way, another good example is with each locality, such as like here in Denver, right? You can't carry with a magazine larger than 10. So, even I have magazines that I think are that are 15, and if I were to carry my firearm with me, I wouldn't be well. The cops obviously aren't going to immediately know, but if I was in some altercation, if something happened, and whatever, I would get in trouble for having a magazine above the 10 round limit. And each locality kind of has their own rules. But I say all of this because there are states that are very permissive and don't have a lot of these restrictions, don't have a lot of these regulations, just are open to having their citizens just carry whatever, do whatever, aren't interested. I want to take a look at, and I want to pose this because people brought it up to me in the what's it called? Oh no, we'll do dark mode. In the comment section of my gun video, of one of my gun videos last night. This is data from the CDC on firearm mortality by state. Now, if we go and take a look, if you notice, New York, the Northeast, actually, let's make sure that's accurate. Actually, pretty low in terms of mortality rate. Now, we have this fun little chart here, which we'll get to a little bit later. But we got that up there. We got, you got the other big state, California. That's kind of coming in at the, what is this, 8.5? So kind of in this mid-orange range. Yeah, this is like the second, or no, this is the first orange range. You got Texas here. I think this is a little bit darker. Yeah, this is in the next range. And then you have and let's be really honest here, a little bit more dangerous in terms of gun mortality rate goes. So I want everybody to keep in mind, what are the permissive states? When we think of the Second Amendment friendly permissive states, what are we thinking of? We're thinking of, and I think this is fair, the South. The South generally has much more permissive gun laws. And do you notice kind of a trend here? Do you notice a little bit of this? That Louisiana up at 26.3%, Mississippi 28.6%, Alabama 23.6%, Georgia, what's Georgia at these days? Georgia, if it comes up, 17.7%. South Carolina, 22. Oh, wow, that's a flat number. Florida, what's Florida? Come on, give me the number. Oh, no, that's ranked. Come on. Number, please. 13.7 for Florida. Sorry, I don't know why. Does it come up on your screen on this? It does. Okay. But these are, these right here. I want everybody to be aware of these. Nope, stop. Do you notice a trend here? Mississippi, Louisiana, Wyoming, Missouri, Alabama, Alaska, New Mexico, Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Montana, Oklahoma, Kentucky. These are the gun mortality rates as of 2020 from the CDC's numbers. Now, you tell me how many of these are liberal bastions? How many of these are Democrat-led states? Not too many of them, right? And could it be, and this is why, and I bring this up to just say, this is why when people say that more permissive laws inevitably lead to a higher rate of death by guns, this is what we mean. Mississippi, Louisiana, and Wyoming are incredibly 2A protective states. And with that, they have a higher rate of gun mortality. So keep this in mind. Now, somebody might, let's do the by deaths. When we talk about by deaths, if you notice, by deaths is a very different story. We have Texas at the top, one of the, again, more permissive states. You have California, Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Now, this is when you might say, Josh, you see, California, Pennsylvania, Illinois. I hear all the time about Illinois on the news and on Fox News. Do you want to know why these numbers aren't? Let's go take a look. California, let's see. Their actual rate is 8.5 in the single digits. Their deaths are higher. Do you want to know why that is? It's because of population changes. This is per capita. This is in regards to the population of those communities, of that state. So when we talk about like raw numbers, I don't want to hear about raw numbers. Raw numbers aren't the thing that we're interested in right now, because raw numbers are going to tell you that there's more death by guns in Illinois than there is in Tennessee. But that actually doesn't change your likelihood. That doesn't mean you're more likely to die from guns in Illinois. That only means that there are more people, meaning that the percentage of gun owners and gun-related deaths will be higher. The raw number will be higher, but the percentage will be lower. It's less dangerous, but there are more deaths. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's not really when you think about it. Texas is up there, not because they have permissive gun laws. They have a 14.2% death rate for guns, but they have the highest number of gun deaths. It's because Texas is a huge state. It's because California, huge state. Florida, huge state. Georgia, huge state in terms of population. So, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. When it comes to guns, it's always I believe it's always a conversation, or always an exercise, I should say, in where your priorities, what are you willing to tolerate to have all of these firearms in the country. It's just, if you're okay with it, then these numbers might not bother you. But for the people who live with these, for the people who live with these realities, it's not as fun, and you kind of feel it. You notice, like in Nashville, Tennessee, a rather pro Second Amendment state, is having their big national moment of gun discourse because of the shooting at the Covenant School. Even a very permissive gun state, when it comes to their front door, they start to rethink it. And it's not unreasonable to say, yeah, I care about rights. I care about rights. I don't think that the left doesn't care about rights, but this is the trade for those rights. This is the trade we're making, is you want more guns, you want all of this stuff. The trade-off is you're going to get more kids killed in schools. There's always the conversation of what if we harden schools and all this stuff. And I'm fine with having that conversation. That's worth talking about. But my biggest pet peeve and my biggest problem is that people who are 2A apologists, 2A defenders, only want to have that conversation as a way to distract and as a way to not talk about the guns, essentially. Penis. And if you're not willing to at least engage with the topic of guns and gun control and the effects that we're seeing because of them, and you just want to talk about hardening schools and everything else, I can't really have a conversation with you, can I? Because there's no, you're not open to hashing these things out. Your goal in that conversation, these people's goal that I find in my comment section, sometimes in my chat, is not a concern, is not an interest in finding an answer. It is only an interest in defending guns, defending their ability to buy firearms. And it's shallow. It's shallow and it's cowardice. And I'm super fucking tired of it. I'm super fucking tired of all these 2A supporters who can never talk about guns, who always want to talk about everything else, every single other thing. They would do anything to not restrict some form of like gun being purchased by somebody. Like, they're just dishonest. They're just dishonest. They don't want to have the conversation. They pretend nobody wants to talk about school hardening programs, but they don't. The only reason is because they don't want to talk about guns. They never brought it up beforehand. It's not something they talk about every day. But anyway, and quite frankly, I just want a conversation with somebody who that's their perspective. And I've invited people, people get in my comments, they complain to me, tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm a lib, tell me I want to ban guns when I don't. And every time I invite them and I say, why don't you come on? We can have a conversation. We can talk, maybe not face to face, but at least over voice and, have some of the nuance. And they never do. They stop commenting. They suddenly don't have any interest in the conversation. Once there's like the chance that like, hey, why don't we like talk about this, and maybe like there's somewhere to meet in the middle on some of this stuff, then it's like, oh, I'm gone. Let's see. I say to Americans, don't give an inch. Look at Canada. We are losing our guns, and we have on average 150 gun homicides a year. 89% of guns collected by police have been illegally obtained. Zero logic to gun law. The gun laws, criminals don't follow gun laws. Same logic with drugs. Supply demand prohibition will fail, as it always does. Well, yeah, I'm not supportive of a ban, Murdercom. That's also the thing. The problem that I have is I find a lot of at least in America, a lot of Second Amendment advocates immediately jump to defending against a like an all-out ban, and no one's ever argued for that. I certainly have never argued for it. I don't even believe Democrats have ever argued for it. They're a bit too weak for that sort of thing. The conversation has almost always been, we need some regulation on these because it's causing a disproportionate amount of death. But they always want to make it about a ban, about taking guns, about this, about that. And it's because they don't argue from reality. They argue from this made-up extreme position that nobody advocates for, because it's very easy to argue against a all-out ban on guns. It's incredibly easy to argue against that. Obviously, people have the right to own weapons to defend themselves. There's no world where I would support a ban on that sort of thing, but there is a world where I support bans on certain levels of firearms and certain certain aspects of firearm ownership. But disingenuous 90% of the time politicians talk about guns, they look like clowns. Oh yeah. I mean, especially Democrats. Democrats are fucking idiots. They don't know anything about guns. Like I'm not defending Democrats in this case. What I am saying is nobody, like, Democrats aren't arguing for bans. They're just not. It's not a thing. If you can find me Joe Biden saying ban all guns, then you can go ahead, but he's not. I think he floated an assault weapons ban, but even then, assault weapon doesn't actually mean anything. Like, that's not a real thing. Banning all sporting guns? Who says banning all sporting guns? I don't know anybody who's banning all sporting guns. And also, again, my frustration is people like people make it about people get at me about it and be like, oh, you want a ban on this, and I've never advocated for a ban in my life. Sporting guns is a proper term for an AR-15. Is that a universal term? I've never heard that personally. I mean, it is, like, they have competitions. They look pretty fun. But yeah, because I guess they're thinking of sporting as in hunting, like sporting in goods and stuff like that. I would presume is why it's under. Here in Canada, we call them that. Okay, yeah, sport, yeah. Yeah. Either way, it's just it's the case that there is we need some everywhere different. Yeah. And the problem is in the same way your guys is the proper term for an AR-15 is sporting gun. We don't really have that in the US. We call them assault rifles, but that's not really descriptive. Any rifle can be an assault rifle. It also goes back to how they worded the assault rifle ban back in the 90s is very dumb. The way that Democrats write their legislation is really not specific and ineffective. I think they're effective, very specific laws that we could pass that, will reduce some of the likelihood of gun violence as opposed to trying to do a ban. Obviously, doing a ban and just collecting everyone's firearms would be the best solution if you want to make everyone safer, but it's not really realistic, and I don't really think the problem calls for that necessarily. Select fire. I think it depends on how they wrote it. I would have to go back and look at the actually let's educate ourselves very quickly. Ban. Okay. I want federal assault weapons ban. Okay. Was I wrong? Was this not 1994? Okay. Let's see. Was subsection the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 94. Prohibition on the manufacture for civilian use of semi-automatic firearms that were defined as assault weapons, as well as certain ammunition magazines as were defined by large capacity. In the United States, assault weapon is a controversial term used to define firearms with specified characteristics. The definition varies among regulating jurisdictions, but usually includes semi-automatic firearms with detachable magazine, a pistol grip, and sometimes other features such as a vertical forward grip, flash suppressor, or barrel shroud. Certain firearms are specified by name in some of the laws that restrict assault weapons, and now defunct federal Yeah, this isn't definitions. Oh, here we go. Common attributes. Legal terms are semi-automatic, folding or collapsing stock, pistol grip, bayonet lug, threaded barrel, suppressor compensator, muzzle brake, grenade launcher, barrel shroud. Dictionary definitions vary from legal definitions. Yeah, it's an incredibly imperfect law. It's why I wouldn't ban it's why this was always a dumb way to write this legislation, because you can have any firearm with different with basically different attributes that do the exact same thing that you're trying to regulate. Something an AR-15 can't do because it has a buffer tube in the stock, for real. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I don't. Democrats have. It's annoying because I really try to advocate for gun control in a responsible and a measured manner. I try to be specific with my language and what I actually want and the reasons that I want certain regulations. But Democrats are dumb and don't know anything about firearms and pass laws that aren't effective. And that part's frustrating. But the frustrating part for me on the other end is when I try to be the reasonable person, coming to Second Amendment advocates and say, hey, like, I understand a lot of this stuff. I want to have a conversation, have some kind of real discourse. Like, you don't like talking to lib shits. I understand it. They're annoying. They don't know hardly anything. I get it. I'm offering you like a different conversation with somebody who cares, who isn't freaked out by guns, who isn't, I'm a gun owner myself. It's not weird for me. I come from a police family. Like, none of this is weird to me. It's just there are things we need to do in this country to just secure our use of them and the dangerous effects of having so many around. A lot of some of these like shootings at schools happen because kids get a hold of their parents' guns because there aren't storage requirements, or at the very least there are varying levels of storage requirements depending on state, which means some states inevitably, as we kind of looked at the chart, have a much higher rate of death by firearm than others. We do need a standard nationally. Let's see, Faruko, 5 years ago, you could say, look at Canada. But now you would be a terrible person to still support what our government is doing. Hold the blue line. Yeah, I come from a police family. And that's just the thing. Like, people, I get really frustrated talking to 2A people because it's just, they make jumps to like, oh, you just want to ban guns. It's very annoying because it's the only conversation they know how to have is the ban guns or don't ban guns. And it's a very shallow version of the conversation. But I'm not the biggest supporter of the police as an institution, but I think police officers are fine. There's problems I have with the system, but that's separate from problems I have with individuals. YouTube, what is this? YouTube, I don't even, let's see. Let's take a look. Let me mute this really quick. What is this? Police motivation. Oh, is this one of those like propaganda videos for like pro police?
Year for police across the country.
The moment you try to deny the existence of evil, you're in denial. The moment you try to pretend there are
it's cringe. Yeah, the pro police stuff is very cringe to me. The one I thought of. I have my issues with the police, but that's a topic for another day. Okay. I need water. My voice is killing me right now. I think I still have like a slight sore throat or something. Let me go grab water and then we'll do college stuff, I guess is the best way to characterize it. Cool. We're back. Phil. Oh, goodness. Excuse me. Okay. So, how do I... Where's the thing? It is right here. Okay. So, at VCU in Richmond, Virginia, it seems that there was a fight that broke out, an altercation, a schmoz, if you will, at a pro-life speech, pro-life rally. I it's put on by some organization in conjunction with a pro-life student group at the College of VCU. That's Virginia Commonwealth University down in Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, so I kind of want to take a look at this. We're going to be spending a little bit of time at colleges here. So yeah, let's go take a look at kind of what all happened, and then we'll luckily this is only like a minute long, so
Fuck pro-life! Fuck pro-life! You won't even let me answer her questions. Would you like me to answer the question? No! Let's just go home. Let's just go home. Would you like to Google the word fascist? Here they come. Isabel, watch yourself. Excuse me, I thought VCU rules were that you can't disrupt a peaceful gathering, and no one's doing anything. They're assaulting her! Medical term!
all right, well, okay, so off the bat, let me do the politics side of this first, and then we'll get into the specific case. You're on a college campus. There is a right-wing speaker coming to spread their fascist ideology and propaganda to whatever little insular small group exists on your campus. What do? Do you go and protest? Do you try to drown out this person's speech with your protest? Do you go and assault people at this event? All of these things would be I'm not 100% sure these are the best the best courses of action. If you're on a campus, to any leftists on a college campus here, if you are on a campus, they're having Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, whoever, this is what they want, and this is the response that they want from you. Understand, but that from a political messaging standpoint, this is the exact reaction that they want to bait out of you. They want to bait you into looking unreasonable, into looking uncivil, into seeming violent. All of these things are, unfortunately, kind of part of the reason why they show up to these events, why they show up to some of these campuses, that they might get they know they might get negative pushback, and that's kind of okay. So if you're on a campus, if you're a leftist, and they're having Ben Shapiro, whoever, I implore you, just ignore them. Just don't give them the time of day. Don't draw attention to them, because that's, at the end of the day, what they're there to do. They want to get eyes. They want to draw attention. They want to, become. They want to turn into a news story. It's why why the video that we're seeing is framed the way it is. We're gonna go through it from top to bottom again. But I want to get that out of the way from a leftist, from a political messaging standpoint. I get it. I fully get it. You're upset. You don't like the speaker. Totally fine. But there is a certain amount of attention that you give them with your protest that plays in and validates them. And you got to watch that. I should be on dismantling. Yeah. But Stolen Invictus is right. That is correct. If they have if they do one of their little people can ask random questions, I'm not even sure if you want to participate in that. They will, at the end of the day, hold the microphone essentially and be able to move you along when they've made their point and they don't want you responding, because you got to be careful with that stuff. But absolutely, I think protesting, showing up, even silently protesting, holding up signs that, of disagreement, whatever, I think that would kind of be a little bit better. This is not it. But I do want to, and I kind of want to go through why. Kind of why. And we're going to go through this fairly quickly. Again, it's only a minute long. So to start out, obviously, this woman is, she kind of looks, she is what we would, I think, colloquially call a Karen, showing up and framing herself as this nice, smiling, affable, perfectly happy, well-adjusted, pro-life advocate. You see, she's so happy and jubilant. I don't know what the fucking word is. Jubilant? I don't know what the word is. But she looks all, in a good mood. She's happy to get this attention. She's happy for this response because everybody in the background looks kind of unreasonable.
Would you like me to answer the question?
She appeals to the watcher, if somebody's watching and, she says like, hey, can I respond to the question that the person said? This audience goes, no, we don't want to hear you talk. We want you to leave. And any normal person looks at that and goes, well, they should let her speak. Now, do I think any of her speech is valuable? Do I think she's right on anything? Fuck no. But to the normal person, to somebody just flipping through random videos, they'll see this and go, why are these college kids so unreasonable? Why are these leftists on college campuses so unreasonable? They won't let people talk.
Would you like to Google the word fascist? Here they come. Isabel, watch yourself.
Keep in mind, they're trying to set the stage of like, whoa, watch yourself. These people are dangerous. They might be dangerous. Who knows? If they do something, if something breaks out, then they've already set the table of like, whoa, these leftists could be dangerous. If nothing happens, they've still communicated to their audience, these people have the potential for violence.
Excuse me, I thought VCU rules were that you can't disrupt a peaceful gathering. And
Now, from what I understand, this is from the same lady who was, speaking or whatever, to which any normal person would say, yeah, like, they shouldn't be able to interrupt her. But no, that's a lot of double speak. That's a lot of double logic right there. Because quite frankly, she has no right to any platform than anybody else. If she wants to come and speak at a college, everybody at that college has a right to come and disagree with her. To say that like policy is that, we need to let people, I need to be able to like speak and spread my propaganda and do all this stuff. No, you don't. You don't. That's the thing you don't have. You don't have a right to that. You have a right to speak. You don't have a right to be spoken back at. That's not how free speech works. It's not I need to exercise my free speech, which means you need to not exercise yours. That's not really how that works.
no one's doing anything. You're assaulting her. Medical term.
Yes. So, and this is the case. There's some kind of altercation broke out between people. I've heard a couple varying stories. Apparently, there were two people who, came into the school and, began this altercation. We still don't have a lot of information on it. It's still a bit, muddy at the moment on deep details. But as far as I could find, it seems like the people interacting in this violent manner were not students. They were trespassers. They were not supposed to be on campus, which means that they are, I don't know, they maybe align with this group, maybe they don't, maybe they're a psyop, maybe they're not, but we don't know that. We just know that two people came onto campus and decided to cause a stir at this. Obviously, there's going to be people who go, well, obviously these were leftists, they just weren't students, but we don't know that, do we? You can make that assertion, and is that likely? Yeah, probably is likely, but that's not the facts on the ground at the moment. Keep in mind also, I also want to point out, word is, from what, I scrolled through a little bit of VCU Reddit to try to find some on the ground information, and I saw a couple people, commenting that that a trans woman was struck, and that's when this whole debacle happened. And I do find it interesting that this video only starts because you have to figure she had been filming this entire time. You know, she was clearly filming this entire experience, this entire response, this entire meeting. She was obviously filming either of it. So why did it cut to the part where you can't really tell what's happening anymore? Who started what? How it started? Was there instigation? You can't tell any of that because the goal is not to communicate that, oh, you know, an altercation broke out between two people. It was a, watch out, they might be violent. Boom, cut to now there's a small brawl. We're not going to show you how it started. We're not going to show you how it ended. We're not going to show you who's in it. Because by absence of that information, we've already set the stage. We've already programmed you to go, oh, that must have been one of the students, one of the angry blue-haired liberal protesting students. When I go look up this story on the news, it was two people from off campus that aren't students. So
So campus police at VCU is shutting down our peaceful assembly because of these fascists right here. So they're going to let
let's finish.
these big crybabies, fascists, get their way.
So yeah. Nope, stop it. Not yet. So yeah, keep in mind that is, you know, this plays perfectly into the whole you know, oh, college campuses are you know, they're indoctrinating our kids with leftism, and they're making them violent, and Antifa and all the rest of the stuff. And this is how they communicate a lot of that. They show up to these campuses, they want people who hold left-leaning values to show up, protest, be angry, because you're teenagers most likely, or you're in your early 20s, and then they stand there, smile, and pretend to be reasonable. This is why I say if you're on a campus, if you're in your early 20s, maybe in your late teens, maybe sit this one out. Maybe just ignore them. Because what you're giving them is attention, and attention is what they want. So they can produce videos like this that are all framing, no facts. Keep in mind also, this person, I want to take a look really quickly at the actual person who was in this video, all the rest of the stuff. Her name is apparently Kristen Hawkins. She is a she is a pro-life activist. You know, I suppose she really deeply cares. She has a YouTube channel. She has this organization, Students for Life, which is a non-profit organization, most likely funded by probably not small donors, something tells me. But, you know, regardless, shows up to college campuses, not unlike Turning Points USA, shows up to college campuses hoping to indoctrinate, hoping to convince, you know, some students to buy into their opinions. Unfortunately, what they don't realize is getting a further education past high school generally makes you more informed and therefore more left-wing, not right-wing, unfortunately, for them. But, you know, either way, I want to take a look at like her channel intro, because her channel intro says a lot about where her priority is. Her like channel preview, the thing that she puts out to say, this is my content. This is the thing that I am, you know, that I'm, that I want to blast out as the beacon for what I put out. And it's greatest pro-choice takedowns with Kristen Hawkins. So I want to take a quick look at this, and then we're going to get to one of her videos.
Body, you have the right to decide what to do.
I can use this, twist off a limb, pull it out, and that's okay. That act of violence is okay.
Oh man, these are already like so. This is already very, what's it called? So this thing. So how do we even do this? Okay, so what she's clearly trying to do is stir up sympathy and appeal to people's like, oh, that looks like a baby. You don't want to hurt a baby, right? But if you're pro-life, you believe that you don't even think that that's a baby. You think two cells rubbing together is a human life. So it's disingenuous to say, oh, you think it's okay if I like kill this little like doll that looks like a baby? Well, no, because I'm not pro baby killing. I'm pro abortion. I'm pro before there's a baby. That's the whole thing. Like you're already framing it in the most disingenuous and dishonest fashion. As far as I'm aware, this looks like a pretty what's okay, let me take a look. Let's see, let's see, development. Let's see, can I get like a good... All right, let's take a look. Yeah. Okay. I want everyone to keep in mind that this, like you can see the little, oh, here, this is what I'll do. So I can pull this. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. No, I didn't want to do that. Okay. You can still see the picture. It doesn't matter. So keep in mind, you see how you see this little like baby here? This small infant here? Does this look like any of the top row? Does this look like 5 weeks? Keep in mind, abortion under Roe v. Wade was, let's see, I believe it was 26 weeks. Roe v. Wade. No. I hope I can find it. Here we go. Mootness, abortion, rights advocacy, rights and privacy. No, Texas lawyers don't care. Let me see. What's Control F? Let me see if I can find weeks. Here we go. Let's see. There's about 10 options. After 15 weeks, what does 15 weeks look like? Geez, it doesn't even look like this second one. Christ. Let's see. Richard Epstein, thought to be tort law. He compared as to what was fact written in the book, which was when actually faced with the issue decision, almost all the jurisdictions have allowed recovery even though the injury don't care. Okay, not what I wanted. Here we go. Planned Parenthood, let's see. For pregnancies at 12 weeks and later, the statute also bans saline abortions. Makes sense. Let's see. Floyd Anders, after he attempted to abort an African-American boy at 25 weeks. So what? After this point? Makes sense. Why is this out of order? Why does it go 5, 10, 40? Okay, that's fucking stupid. Let's see. Plurality also found that the fetus was now viable at 23 or 24 weeks rather than the 28. So keep in mind, the in terms of Roe v. Wade, yeah, v. Casey, yeah. Like in terms of Roe v. Wade, we already decided, yeah, 23 to 24 weeks is the cutoff. To which, yeah, let's see. 6 weeks pregnant, Dobbs, which had banned abortion after 15 weeks. Yeah, makes sense. Let's see. Filed suit immediately after passage of federal court in the state. Stated that the law violated the previously established 24-week point. Makes sense. 6 weeks after 6 weeks. Yeah. Within 6 weeks. Keep in mind. Again, let's remember. 6 weeks. It is whatever the fuck this thing is all the way to the right. Or all the way to the left. I'm sorry. Like, that's the thing that she's pretending. See, this is what I mean by dishonesty. She's pretending that abortion advocates, or more accurately, that pro-choice advocates, people who aren't pro-life, believe that you can abort babies at the stage that she's holding right now. But the stage of infancy that she's holding right now is something like the last, I would say, probably month or so of development. Most abortions are done within the first trimester, which is the first what is that? 3, 6, 12, 3, wait, 4, yeah, 18, the first 18 weeks. So wait, no, first 12 weeks. The first 12 weeks. Sorry, I'm bad at math, but either way,
I can use this, twist off a limb, pull it out, and that's okay. That act of violence is okay.
Too bad
because it's my property.
Actually, is that
no. Why do you do that?
Twist off a limb,
God damn it.
pull it out, and that's okay. That act of violence is okay.
It's too bad that that's not how abortion works. That doctors don't like pull fetuses out, limb by limb,
Because
with a little vacuum.
actually, essentially, that is what I'm saying. While the baby's inside of your body, you have the right to decide what to do with it because it resides in your body.
Do you think that was okay?
Do you think she had a second? Do you think there was a second part to that sentence? Because I would agree with that. And then the second part of that would be until the baby is viable or until a certain point of gestation, in which case you should have to bring that to term. Like, if it's gone far enough, then yeah, that's basically a life.
It's okay to set banners on fire? I think people can do whatever the fuck they want to do. Pause it. Why can't women be this?
What is this? What is this?
When sperm and egg unite, they create a unique, living, whole human being.
A whole human being? Guys, the top row, a whole human being. Keep in mind, that's what she thinks. She thinks this top row is a whole human being, which, let me be clear, she has all the right to do so. But that's the problem with the pro-life position, is that it's an anti-choice decision, because not everyone holds the opinion that this entire top row is a whole human being. That'd be fucking ridiculous.
Exactly. I'm the anti-abortion. Sperm is a part of a man's body. An egg is part of a woman's body. When sperm and egg unite, they
True.
create a unique, living, whole human being that's never
They can.
existed before and never existed again. A sperm is a part that can.
Keep in mind, there are like kids who don't live through birth. That's like, it's not like that life ever actually started. Like, they're stillborn children. There are people who have miscarriages that they just don't work out, but that doesn't mean somebody died. You wouldn't mourn that. Like, nobody died in that scenario.
Can be used to create a whole living.
It's absolutely devastating for people, but
But it's not full DNA. It's not a human person. Science tells us that sperm and eggs aren't persons. But a zygote, an embryo,
aren't they?
a fetus is a human being.
They're sentient beings, are they not? Well, at least sperm. Like, sperm are at least mildly sentient.
And my question is that unborn fetus that can
Maybe not sentient. I don't know what the word would be.
Tell me to carry it to term.
True.
If it's an unplanned pregnancy.
True.
And odds are that if it goes into the foster care system, it will face severe neglect and abuse.
So you
True.
believe that we should have the right to eliminate the sufferer, not the suffering. Is that what you're saying?
That's not.
What? Wait, I'm sorry. What?
Cannot live outside the mother. What right do you have to tell me to carry it to term if it's an unplanned pregnancy? And odds are that if it goes into the foster care system, it will face severe neglect and abuse.
So you believe that we should have the right to eliminate the sufferer, not the suffering.
How did she? Okay, we're just moving on.
What you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying at all, and that's not what my question
You just said that if you knew for 100% certainty.
That's not what she said already.
That the child you're birthing is going to have a lifetime of suffering.
Wha-
That is better for the child.
It's too bad she didn't say that.
Than for the child to suffer. So instead of attempting to solve the suffering of the child,
That is certainly a much easier argument to argue against, yeah.
My question was, how do we end that suffering to make bringing a child that is unwanted into this world justifiable?
Well,
So
I think
how
there's
do
a lot of
propose
things.
we solve those problems.
We absolutely, as pro-lifers and as Americans, we care about the children in foster.
Americans.
We care about children who are being neglected, who are living.
Do you, though? Do you know how many kids are in foster care? How many kids are in, like, the CPS system and nobody gives a shit? You know, this is the same party. Keep in mind, this is the same party that was against the child tax credit. This is the same party that saw childhood poverty reduce by, I believe it was 30% when we introduced the child tax credit during the pandemic, and they actively pushed for it to expire. 30% of children in the United States were plunged back into poverty because of that. And they had no problem with that. But now suddenly, only in the case of are they born, are they not born, are they interested in life? This is the lie of pro-life. They're not interested in life. They're interested in dogma, I guess? I don't even know if it's dogma, if it's... I don't know what the motivating factor is. It's certainly... someone could make the argument that it's control. And certainly men who make this argument might say, you know, there's a pretty viable explanation that women who don't have the ability to stop pregnancy, don't have the ability to continue to be independent people, especially in an economy where you need two incomes to survive. But from a woman's perspective, is it just dogma? Like what's the motivating creed, I guess? I'm assuming it's just dogma. It has to be.
Living on the streets with their parents. These are things that we as Americans strive to fix, right? That we give to charitable organizations. Americans, we care about the children in foster care. We care about children who are being neglected, who are living on the streets with their parents.
Wait. Do Republicans give a shit about homelessness? Have Republicans been actively pushing for policies that will help stem homelessness? Have they?
These are things that we as Americans strive to fix, right? That we give to charitable organizations, that we're involved in organizations in our community and churches in our community to solve these problems. So I actually don't believe anyone in this room, regardless of whether or not you're pro-life or you're pro-choice, thinks that children should be suffering in foster care or children should live.
So what's funny is she's sidestepping the question, because if I remember correctly,
Genetic code. And my question is that unborn fetus that cannot live outside the mother, what right do you have to tell me to carry it to term?
so yeah, that's what I thought. She sidestepped the actual question. What she wants to know is why, what is her name? Kristen, right? Yeah. Why Kristen has a right to tell her what to do with her pregnancy. That's the actual question. All the, like, you know, the concerns that she listed are the concerns as to why she would want an abortion, why she doesn't want to carry that pregnancy to term, because there are a number of factors that she finds to be problematic, troublesome, whatever it might be. These are all things where it's like, oh, you know, I don't drive on this on X highway because there's like 7 potholes on it and the lights don't work, right? And the question isn't how do we fix those? She wants to say, oh, well, I want all of those things to get fixed. But that's not the question. The question is why Kristen has the right to tell this woman she must drive down that road, why she has no other choice but to drive on that road. She can dodge all of those potholes, certainly. She can avoid those. She can live through passing under that light that doesn't work. But the question is of autonomy, not of the structural problems. We all recognize the structural problems. We have systems in place to address those. We don't use them. Republicans defund them. But nonetheless, The question at hand is, why is somebody who's not carrying this baby, these batch of cells in me, telling me what to do with it? That's the question. And she sidesteps it because she knows that she doesn't have any ground to stand on in terms of saying why she gets to determine what, you know, the course of action for somebody else. Right? Okay, let's give her a chance. I'm not gonna
live through hunger. We're going to play God, and we're going to abortion by saying some people are going to suffer, trying to justify legal abortion by saying some people are going to suffer. Therefore, we're going to play God, and we're going to.
Yep. It's just dogma.
I think that's absolutely wrong.
It's just dogma.
One, because people come out of adversity. People do suffer, and we will all suffer in our life. But I think
also, I love the suffering is good. It makes you like this is the value of suffering makes you better. That suffering in and of itself is a value.
I think it's wrong for you to say
it's better when you suffer.
Therefore I'm going to kill you.
So bringing you back to my question, how do you propose we solve those problems for the children that are suffering?
So do you want to go through today all the world's problems and all the United States problems and try to solve?
I love that. I absolutely love that, because her whole thing in the beginning was, her entire thing was sidestepping what gives you the right to make that decision for me. And instead she decided, well, we have all of these other problems that we would like to fix. And when she says, cool, give me, why don't we have some solutions for those? She goes, what, honey, you want me to fix all of the world's problems? Oh my God. Wow. That was amazing. Wow. You fucking bitch. That's wow. Holy shit. Way to just, oh, wow. Okay. We're going to finish this up. Jesus.
This is a common thing we hear in the pro-life movement.
Oh.
You're pro-life.
Oh.
You don't care about people once they're born. You don't care about women after they're born. In fact, if you
and now she's got to walk it back. She's got to pretend to care now.
30
Yeah.
different things. Yet, are you upset that the American Diabetes Association doesn't fight cancer?
I specifically simply asked.
Wait, no. If you care about life, then you care about life. Life in terms of what we're talking about is healthcare. It's standard of living. It's actual quality of education. It's the ability to the pursuit of happiness if you're an American. But of course, what does she do? She does the classic, like, I care about life. No, you don't, you dumb fuck. You care about birth. For whatever reason, you're obsessed with birth. That's the only thing. Then in that case, stop saying you're pro-life, because you're not pro-life. You're not pro that child being able to eat. You're not pro that child not being neglected. You're not pro that child not being homeless. You're not pro that child getting a good education. You're not pro that child not being shot in fucking school. No, that all you are pro women giving birth to kids. That's it. It's some weird dogmatic bullshit. But don't come in here and be like, I'm pro-life, and then say, but when I say pro-life, at least she's kind of being honest. She's not trying to be. The mask is slipping a bit, but she just revealed that, like, yeah, I don't give a shit about any of this other stuff. Do you think child abandonment has anything to do with their life? You think their possible starvation has anything to do with their life? Like, it's fucking Christ. These fucking people.
Are you upset that the American Diabetes Association doesn't fight?
The American Diabetes Association does not say that they're pro-life.
No.
Why?
Because they are the Diabetes Foundation.
Exactly. I'm the anti-abortion.
Cool. Then don't say that. Oh, wait. You know, it's funny. It's funny because that's not what you say in here. It's Students for Life. Like,
Next question.
fucking got him.
That's the next question.
Fucking got him with my Tivana.
Because you just answered my. You
Where I
answered.
asked for a proposed solution to our issues.
I don't have a proposed solution.
Homelessness.
Okay, we can have a debate.
Her proposed solution is, don't get pregnant, honey. That's her proposed solution.
I can do a whole lecture about foster care.
You could.
We can do
Will
a
you
whole
ever?
lecture on homelessness.
Will she
These are
ever?
Great
Nope.
problems that we face in our nation.
And she has
These are
no
dilemmas
interest
that
in
we
solving
face.
them.
There's different policy prescriptions.
What are
on
they?
How to solve those.
Please, give me
But
one.
My organization.
Yep, there it is. But it's not my problem. It's not what I care about.
My mission.
This is why she's not pro-life. She's just she is, honest at least. She is just anti-abortion and anti-choice. That's all she is. But I want to take a look at just an actual video of hers, just because I'm kind of curious with the argumentation here, because apparently this is how to win debates. So I watch at least a okay number of debates online, so I'm always looking for another resource to hear debate content. So let's kind of see how this goes. Oh my god. Explicitly pro. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Your podcast isn't called Anti-Abortion, you dumb asshole. It's called Explicitly Pro-Life. I fucking hate these people. They're so fucking dishonest.
Hey, Pro-Jen, it's Kristen Hawkins. Welcome to this in the debate episode on the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. Okay, so today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to rapid fire some of the common phrases we hear as excuses or just things that we hear about why people aren't pro-life, and do some responses to them. So this helps you in your conversation. Here we go. I'm not a conservative. Okay, well, I didn't say you had to be a conservative to
I'm so confused. What?
Be pro-life. Fundamentally, abortion is not a political or even a religious issue. It is a human rights issue. Every single person, regardless of their background,
I can't tell what's the question and what's the argument. Okay.
Has a seat at the table and deserves the right to live. And I think anyone can acknowledge the rights of human beings to live. That's what politics is actually supposed to do. It's supposed to help ensure
she's talking about
it's supposed
this
to
top row.
Protect citizens of
the top left
area,
is what she thinks is human life.
So you don't have to be conservative to be pro-life. Even the Students for Life team is incredibly diverse in
I'm sure it is, Kristen. I'm sure it is.
Their political leanings. I think one of the tragedies of modern day politics is that the Democratic platform has.
Oh, these people. Oh, we have such a diverse thing. The next sentence out of her mouth. The Democratic Party. Oh my God. Oh, these fucking Karens.
Safe, legal, and rare. That phrase that Bill Clinton coined in the 90s to convince my grandparents.
What laws changed? Roe v. Wade has been consistent. It's always been 24 weeks.
To vote for him, to now birthday abortions are fine. And maybe even infanticide, a few hours after birth is fine too.
Wait. Did she just... Wait. So her argument is that Democrats are pro the actual murder of children? This woman is a QAnoner. I'm saying it right now. Whether she comes out with it in public or not, she believes in QAnon. I will say that. She can refute me if she wants.
They've also made it exceedingly clear that if you are pro-life, if you're anti-abortion in any way, you are not welcome.
Oh yeah, I'm also gonna do this meme really quickly. Abortion's not legal past, I believe, 24 weeks, or it might be 24 or 26. I forget the precise number, but I know it's one of those two. Unless the health of the mother is at risk, in which case abortion is legal. That's when. So every time she says. Every single time she says, birthday abortions, every single time she is talking about a scenario where a child is born, or more accurately, a scenario where a mother would die in the process of childbirth, and at the moment of birth, at the moment where there is a decision to be made, some women choose to live. That's what she's describing, and that she's politicizing. The scenario, the utterly, unbelievably stressful, horrible moment when a mother realizes or is told by a doctor that it's their life or their child's life. and that husband has to deal with that, that family has to deal with that. Do they try again? You know, that's up to them. Like there's so much that goes into that. And she's using these awful scenarios to propagandize for her religious dogma bullshit. It's fucking disgusting.
In their party, which eliminates, quite frankly, the voices of thousands, as over a third of registered Democrats are pro-life voters. At the end of the day, if you are anti-abortion,
so a minority,
the killing of a unique whole living human life is wrong simply because of their location, their size, their level of development, the what happened.
Well, yeah, we do have again, there is kind of a difference between this one on the far top left and the one on the far bottom right. There is a difference there.
In the night they were conceived, that we are on the same team. And trust me, I may not agree with you on every other issue, and I'll be pretty vocal about that.
What is this again?
But I'm happy to have you on our team.
Students.
How about this one? I'm a man, so I can't say anything about abortion.
That's dumb.
Really? It is such a cop-out answer when we hear
okay, that's okay. Sentence. Let me just tell you right now, that's just fucking stupid. You can have an opinion on whatever you want.
Times from Christians who are pro-life against abortion. They'll say, well, you know, shouldn't we address more than just abortion? Absolutely. As Christians, as citizens of United States of America,
it's a dogma thing.
Decent human beings,
it's definitely.
Yes, we should do more in our society than just advocate against the killing of children. But I think it's really interesting because when you hear that statement, it's always under like the assumption that maybe we should just talk a little bit less about abortion, or if we talked less about abortion, it would be easier to bring people into the church or into our social.
Oh yeah, by the way, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. Apparently this woman is opposed to the prosecution of women who self-abort, which there are multiple states trying to enact legislation to do that. And she is also on record of opposing exceptions for rape and incest. So if you're raped, if you're raped, then this woman thinks fucking deal with it. Your problem now.
It's really weird because you never hear that with any other cause where the members of the cause are told, well, maybe you should just do something else.
Oh gosh, she's from Fredericksburg. Of course she is.
And I think that is, when in human history has it ever been wrong to be anti a very bad thing? I mean, there were anti-slavery groups. There's always been anti-genocide efforts. There's anti-human trafficking organizations. There's anti-smoking organizations. Our movement is no different. And I think that, the more we add all these issues to say, well, I'm going to be a pro-life activist, and these people say I need to do more, so I'm going to do 10 different things and engage in 10 different issues. I think that when you muddy that of what pro-life is and what pro-lifers are trying to do, forcing us to address every injustice in human society, which, by the way, there's a lot, it will make us less effective in the mission we originally set out to accomplish, which is abolishing abortion. And I'll go back to something I use on campuses all the time. No one ever dare tells the American Diabetes Association or the American Cancer Association that maybe they need to spend a little more time advocating against other ailments. No one would ever do that. But somehow with abortion, that's always.
Again, your organization is a pro-life organization. It's what you market. You're just lying. That's the whole part of it. Unfortunately, these people are, this woman is very clearly immune to shame and hypocrisy, mainly because she, let's be honest. She, as we've kind of shown here, she's kind of, she plays around with the words a lot. And, go forth, do what you want. But no, please spare me this bullshit of like, oh, well, the American Diabetes Organization. Yeah, the American Diabetes or Association is an advocate for diabetes. You're an advocate by your own language, by your own terms, is life. Life does not encompass just birth. Fucking idiot.
What happens? It's maddening. How about this one? Fetuses are living humans. Well, that's your science. My science says otherwise. Yeah, relativity is a very dangerous thing. We're seeing it play out across our college campuses and high schools across the country. And with this generation, we more or less have a nation that has us all walking around in our own little bubbles. Each of us has our own values and facts and philosophies, and all of them are somehow simultaneously correct. Somehow, all of them. There is no your science and there is no my science. There is only science. And science is very clear that the
Okay.
biological lives of organisms begin at fertilization. Even the world's most intelligent abortion supporters don't refute this fact. In fact, I found out the other day the
Cool. Who cares? No, honestly, I really mean that. Like, there's a part of me that people say, oh, well, look, this is this is technically another entity over here. This is another entity. This is cool. Yeah, that none of this entire top row is a life. I'm sorry, I just disagree. And furthermore, the extinguishing of any of these top rows doesn't bother me. There's no experience, there's no pain, there's no anything. There's no negative outcome to any of this. None of the aborting of anything, especially on this top row. Nothing changes. The world doesn't react. There's not a huge loss. There wasn't a life happening. And again, this is why it's frustrating to have these conversations. And it's why it will never, ever, 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 in my opinion, end. Because I'm of the opinion that I get to think that the top row isn't a life because it does not qualify as what I would define as a living being. And this woman is fully within her rights to believe that that top row describes what she calls a living being, a life, all of that stuff. I believe that she has the right to believe all the things that she believes. What I don't believe she has the right to do is to tell people, is to force them into her viewpoint, into her way of thinking. I don't know how to say this any clearer. She's not anti-abortion. She's anti-choice. She doesn't like abortion. She certainly is anti-abortion. But her political prescription and the format in which she wants to build society around this issue is one of non-choices. She does not want women to have the choice to decide if they want children or not. I respect that for people who accidentally get pregnant and say, I'm not okay with that. I got no problem with that. But there are others who think differently. And unless you can point to me the harm done by this to society, keep in mind, then I'm sorry. There will never be a world where I can agree with her blanket anti-abortion, anti-choice stance. There just can't. We cannot agree on this.
A new artificial intelligence website where you can go in and like ask this AI bot all these questions is even pro-life. Like, you can't deny the fact, is what's inside of a mother a living human being with a unique genetic code? Absolutely. That there is no your or my science. There's just science, and sometimes I guess facts can be hard because those facts could make you have to readdress something that you hold dear, a value that you want to have, or maybe a way that you're living your life. That's certainly a very real thing.
I don't think I need to keep this up. I've made my point.
But it's not your science or my science. It's just science. And if you're pro-abortion and you deny that what's inside of a mother is a unique, whole, living human being that's never existed before, will never exist again.
What's funny is she talks about if you don't believe that, and to that point, it's like, yeah, I don't believe it. Who are you to tell me I should believe differently? Who are you to decide? Again, this goes back to that question that student had. I disagree with you. Who are you to tell me I must adopt your position? Because that's what she is doing. Also, I love this line because it's obviously very clear part of her marketing. The
living human being that's never existed before, will never exist again.
Where is it?
And if you're pro-abortion and you deny that what's inside of a mother is a unique, whole, living human being that's never existed.
Unique, whole, living. Is it living? Is sitting inside of a womb, not moving, not breathing, not interacting, is that living? No. Is it unique? Sure. Is it, it can never be done again? All right. So what? Again, that's just another word for unique. Whole? Is that human whole? Well, no, by definition, a fetus isn't a whole person. It can't survive on its own. If taken out of the womb, it doesn't develop. You ever bought like the like a shell of like a computer? That's not a whole computer. That's just part of a computer. There's many different components. It's the same for humans. Like, oh God, this is brain melting.
Before will never exist again, then you're anti-science.
Well, there you go, folks. We're anti-science, I guess. I don't, unfortunately, she gets quite a lot of money for her organization through nonprofits. Yeah, Fight Pro-Life is right. It's just anti-choice. That's all it actually is. Okay, so we're gonna, how much time do we have? We have 57 minutes or a little bit less than an hour. Okay, we're gonna jump over Michael Knows and go straight to the Jubilee video. But before I do that, I'm trying to think how to like really say this, which is the dishonesty from people like this is what frustrates me, is what pisses me off more than almost anything else. The way these people obfuscate and gaslight and quite frankly lie about their positions and about the way that they approach their entire stance on this infuriates me, for the simple reason that I don't like when people can't just own up to what it is that they want and pretend that their opinions on this or that topic are somehow not backed up by any facts, not backed up by any science, not really backed up by anything. It's a fundamental belief. And I got no problem with people having beliefs. What I have a problem with is people invoking and demanding that those beliefs be codified into law for everybody, regardless of their beliefs. Now, obviously, in every society, you're gonna have, you're gonna have compromises on, your personal beliefs. That's how we build these things called diverse societies. But with that comes the push and pull of people like this and people like me. If you're, if you're pregnant, I think you have a right to figure out whatever is best for you, whether that's having that child, raising it, having it, sending, adopting that child out, finding an adoptive home, whether that's getting an abortion. I don't think that's my right to tell anybody what they are allowed to do. Not, this woman wants to change people's minds, but that's kind of the second order, because what she wants are laws changed and then eventually people to follow behind that. But it's infuriating. It's infuriating, quite frankly. Anyway, okay. Jubilee had a video on should minors transition, detransition versus trans. I don't. Okay. Yeah. Let's just go into it.
Raise your
Left such a bad taste in my mouth. That entire video. Absolutely terrible taste. All right, let's see. I also really love when Jubilee does this because it always feels like they like go to a college campus, ask a few people if they want to be in videos, for the usually the left wing side of the argument, and then when it's time to go look for right wingers, they just go and call content creators, media trained personalities, people who their job is to have these disagreements, not it's a thing that they care about while they're getting their degree. It's always very interesting to me. But anyway, let's
raise your hand if you feel attacked by the opposite side.
Why is there a gecko? That's fun. Jesus.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. Gender-related treatment should be banned for minors. I repeat, gender-related treatment should be banned for minors.
Gender-related. Okay, so let's. Okay, well, let's see what they think. Gender.
Medical transition is no place for a child. I transition as an
Detransitioning means stopping or reversing gender transition, which can include medical treatment or changes to appearance or both. In appearance or both. Associated Press.
And I have medical complications. I have mental health issues. Child cannot consent to a medical transition because kids want to eat ice cream every day. It doesn't mean that they should.
I kind of agree with
Is transitioning the same thing as ice cream? Already I'm not really a fan of this argumentation because I mean, it's treating transition as if it's candy, as if it's something that inherently is irresponsible to participate in. Because obviously, you know, when people draw the comparison of ice cream, of candy, and stuff like that, I think Libs of TikTok does this. What you are inevitably drawing the similarity to isn't to transitioning, isn't to, you're drawing this comparison in a incredibly ignorant and dishonest way. What people go through in terms of their their possible gender dysphoria, their dissatisfaction with their gender roles, with their gender what's the word I'm looking for, presentation, whatever, is not the same as I want ice cream because it's sweet tasting, because I like ice cream. These things are so wildly different. And also, it also kind of belies a certain I think narrative which kind of I think should be maybe a little bit more normalized, in the sense that if you want to transition, if it's something you want, you should be able to do that. The same way, if you want ice cream, you should be able to eat that, buy it, whatever. But when we talk about minors, we're not even talking about transitioning. We're not even talking about a lot of the medical and a lot of the surgery aspect of it. For minors, the gender-related treatment refers to hormone blockers and hormone therapy at the most, and at the absolute least, it's socially transitioning, which is to say, maybe, when they choose a different identity, you affirm that identity and move forward with that new identity. They might reverse back, they might not, who knows? But the gender-related treatment that we give kids isn't surgery. Kids don't get gender-affirming surgeries. Certainly not a majority, certainly not even a plurality. I would be shocked to find any number that's not, in the like single digits, double digits, maybe. And even that I'd be shocked to see. It's just not something that kids under 16 or 18 around those ages end up, being recommended by their doctors. It's not really something that doctors are trained to say, yes, this for this age group, this is an appropriate step to take. Usually that's gate kept to 18.
On that as well, because we have so many rules and regulations when it comes to tobacco or alcohol or any type of drugs. Driving a car, you can't even, rent a motel until you're like 25. There's some specific things
that's not
that
true.
We need to put into place.
You can't rent a car.
Would help protect our
Motels
children
are fine.
because
Hotels are fine.
Minors themselves really don't know who they are until they become 25, 26 years old.
Wait, no, but that's not why you can't do that. You can't rent. You can't rent houses. You can't rent cars until you're 25 because, mostly because nobody wants to rent to that young. And, if kids are renting cars, they can cause a lot of damage. They can, like, kill people if they're not, if you rent some 16-year-old a Lamborghini, there's a good chance they're going to be immature, drive too fast, and get somebody killed. And insurance companies, car rental companies, and the general public are not in favor of that. That seems a bit dangerous.
Minds aren't fully developed, and it kind of breaks my heart a little bit.
So I did transition as a minor. I was a teenager who had a lot of mental health issues and had been sexually exploited and hated my body. And it ended with me kind of finding spaces where that was twisted into, no, you're just a boy in the wrong body. And it ended with me having my first ever medical intervention being a double mastectomy at 16 before any hormones, before anything else. And because of transitioning at such a young age, in the past 6 months, I have watched my body fall apart and waste away in front of me.
How old is this person?
Boy in the wrong, sexually exploited and hated.
They're not going to say.
In the past 6 months, I have watched my body fall apart and waste.
Also, let's be really, really clear about this. And we need to talk about this when it comes to detransitioners. This shit happens the same way that there is not just medical regret, but also medical mistreatment, I guess, is maybe what this would fall under. That's going to happen. It is. It happens for every single medical that's what I'm looking for, procedure that we do. This is not, it's not really that it's abnormal or it is normal. It's just simply a fact of medical advancement that there are going to be scenarios where people seek medical treatment and it's not the thing that they need. That has always been the case. It's always going to be the case. There is no getting away from that. The problem that a lot of the trans community has with the detrans community is that the detrans community is used as a bludgeon in an argument against trans people, to which it shouldn't be. Those people have their own unique experiences and should be treated with the respect as people who made decisions, made mistakes, were misinformed, were uninformed, were whatever ended up happening is what happened to them. And we should be treating those people with empathy, with sympathy, with support, and with a understanding that, hey, like, we need to make these processes better. We need to make these, the systems of transition better, maybe. Which a lot of this keeps developing, and we get better at understanding this stuff. But we can't simply use the very small percentage of people who detransition and were unhappy and were regretful of the entire process to undermine a incredibly large community of people that need the ability to live the life under the identity that they want to live under. There's always this talk about minors, and I get that there is concern over like what minors are allowed to do and everybody agrees that there should be barriers to what minors are capable of getting. If you ask me, Josh, should this person have been allowed to give their consent to to do a double mastectomy or whatever? Well, I think it was mastectomy at 16. I would say, I don't fucking know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not her therapist. I'm not her doctor. I'm not any of these things. I can't tell you if one individual person is ready to make that decision at 16. I can tell you what the data tells us and what trends tell us in terms of when people are capable of making the decision. Medical consent, we decided, was 16 because we think that that is an age where you're mature enough to make decisions about your own healthcare. And maybe maybe it's the case that that fully transitioning, doing those kinds of surgeries, maybe an extra 2 years should be required. I don't know. I don't have that answer. But we certainly can't we can't shut down all of these people's avenue to get health care, because some people, and I stress this, a small minority end up detransitioning because of dissatisfaction.
Away in front of me. I have constant joint pain. I've watched my muscle mass waste away. I've watched my vocal cords hurt. I don't know if I'll ever be able to carry a child. The evidence we have suggests that the best way to figure out if gender dysphoria persists into adulthood is to let them grow up. Because a lot of these kids will grow out of it, and many of them will just grow up and end up being gay or gender nonconforming.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's really, as far as I've seen, there's no evidence of that. And the only way, and this is also the problem, the only way you figure that out is if we just don't, if we just tell trans kids, no, fucking deal with it. And we find out what happens as they get older. Because understand that under that format, under that decision to move forward with that kind of care, the options are, if you are a trans kid, or you might if you're 9 years old, you think you might be trans, right? Your options under this person's roadmap are get over it, or we'll find out how you feel about it later. Those are the options. And imagine you're dealing with this, and the adults in the room tell you, we're going to let you continue to be stricken with mental health, with mental health setbacks, with issues with dysphoria, not just with your body, but with your personality, with the way you present, with the role you want to play in life. We are going to saddle a generation of kids to not ever be able to take any action on any of this, so that we can figure out how much damage it's going to do to them. Quite frankly, this is why people argue for hormone blockers, because they're, at the very least, that buys you time to find out if that child is in a phase or if they're genuinely trans. But we already know that a large percentage of people who go on puberty blockers end up fully transitioning. So, not all of them, but again, a small minority, it's a phase. The argument, you would have to believe that the vast majority of trans people are living in a phase with this stuff. That a vast amount of these people who transitioned when they were younger are all just living in a phase to believe this. So it's, anyway, let's just continue because we're only 2 minutes in.
Can the disagreeer step forward?
I mean, if we're going to be honest, every major medical organization supports gender-affirming care for trans youth. They say
absolutely
it's
do.
safe and it's life-saving. And there are numerous studies that back that up.
The study that backs it up for puberty blockers is the Dutch protocol, and the same scientists.
I have 10 studies that I can bring to you right now.
The same scientists that brought that up have since rolled it back and said it was never supposed to be applied the way it has. The American medical industry, we all know, is money hungry and has gone off the rails.
Well, no, but that's for everything, though. They want to make money doing everything. That's not an argument against this specific specific avenue of healthcare. This would be the equivalent of saying we shouldn't develop this drug that cures you of coughing because we don't know, because A, the company who made it might make money, and B, maybe you'll get over the cough. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll develop a worse cough. But we need to let you suffer. We need to let you continue to cough until you can't cough no more, to find out if it's worth giving you a drug that stops you from doing so, that cures you of that.
I do agree that there are definitely some doctors out there that may be taking advantage of trans people, and I'm sorry that you went through this. Truly, I really am sorry. But trans kids are valid.
If you want, not only that, I know I'm stopping a lot. I'm really sorry. But not only that, but you can solve that specific problem a lot, much easier, which is single-payer healthcare, decommodification of the healthcare industry. If you want to solve that specific the money angle of this, then we just need to restructure our healthcare system. You know, that's the fix for that, not committing trans kids to just dealing with their gender, their gender dysphoria and wait for them to get over it, or, Roblox themselves, I guess.
It's healthcare.
I want to speak to that real quick. Like, I came out 13 years ago when I was 14, and I knew, not that I was trans, but that I was a boy. I had to go through a lengthy process of therapy and seeing an endocrinologist and go through different tests and exams to make sure that this was real to everyone else involved. Transitioning and being trans was just a process I went through to become who I always knew I was. It wasn't a decision that I made. It was a life or death thing.
There's always people in my comment section. I really want to ask, for any of the conservatives in my comments, or maybe any of you hate watchers in my chat, should that person be going to the women's restroom? That's my question.
For me, and if I hadn't gotten on hormones and gotten surgery at 16, I don't know if I would be here.
As a father, I have 4 kids, and also as a trans
same question
person,
applies.
I think that knowing what it looked like for me as a child, and that experience of going through all of the turmoil and all of the trepidation around my gender identity, I would not put my children in that situation. And also, I don't think that surgeries should be allowed for minors. When we look at the data and we look at the statistics and we look at the research, the vast majority of these surgeries are happening to adults. They're not minors. Yeah. So let's start there, right? And then further than that,
if we look, it is a vast majority.
Puberty blockers are reversed.
Puberty blockers are medicines that prevent puberty from happening. They work by blocking the hormones testosterone and estrogen that lead to puberty-related changes in your body.
So when it comes to children, when we talk about puberty blockers,
I want to see if I can find the latest numbers.
It gives them autonomy over their bodies. It gives them a space that they can explore their expression. They can explore who they are without surgeries, without all of these other things that could have permanent effects. My kids were maybe 8 and 10 when I started my transition, and so I talked to them in kid terms. I told my son, I said, look, your mom, dad wants to be a dad because that's how I feel. And my kids being so young, they understood it. They were like, okay, we're with it, And so as they got older, I would bring them into my world and get them to understand the things that
I'm back. I know you missed me.
Going through, but now that they're adults, they understand differences in people, not just trans people, but people in general.
So there is such thing as gender fluid. How do you know that this kid is not going to change their gender expression later on? We really actually don't have studies on children that are taken over long term, like over 10 years, 20 years. You've only been on testosterone 14 years. One of the oldest trans men, Buck Angel, he almost died from testosterone. You're saying right now it saved your life. You may still die from it. You don't know. You're
die
still
happy.
Exactly.
You'll die for ideology, and a lot of people have died for an ideology.
It's not an ideology.
But we have more people that are dying.
Yeah, like this is okay. This person's. Why do I feel like they're like? I feel like this person with the whole get up. I get the sneaking suspicion that they're like a influencer or something. But keep in mind, her example was one person, and also Buck Angel is rather on the older side. Like, Homeboy's been around quite a while. The science has developed a lot farther on since even when he was probably transitioning. So I feel like this is one of those, yeah, medicine wasn't as good back then. We recognize that. But also the idea that, people get nose jobs, people get, cosmetic surgery that can lead to them having health complications or whatever. It's usually small chances, but it can happen. But most people who get those will tell you that they appreciated the opportunity to make that decision for themselves. And most of them say, I would honestly guess to say, most of them would say, I'd rather get the change that I wanted to make. And, if there's consequences, I can live with those. But at least that was my choice. It was in my hands, from the start.
It's an idea that you were born in the wrong body.
Themselves. Look at the suicide rate of transmasculine folks. It is at 55%. And one of the factors that could save their lives is support, right? And so if we have folks that are committing suicide because they're not allowed to transition, how do we fix that? If you're telling me the transition for children or minors is something that shouldn't be done.
I am very sensitive to this subject, as I've been the person who has had to talk people off the ledge when it comes to suicidality. The discussion around how we talk about suicide is a very dangerous one in this community. My parents were told, do you want a dead daughter or a living son? That's not an appropriate way to talk about that.
And I understand that, but it is our transmasculine youth that are at the highest risk of suicide.
And yeah, that's incredibly manipulative. I don't even know if manipulative is the word, because I don't think that that's a manipulation by doctors. To me, that's a characterization of a pretty fair and backed up characterization of your possible outcomes. Because this person makes the point that the suicide rate for trans youth, specifically for trans youth for men, is incredibly high. 55% is a huge number. That's massive. So we need to deal with that. There needs to be an understanding that this isn't just you didn't buy me the eyeliner I want. You didn't get me the thing I wanted for Christmas. This is a fundamental part of people's identity. This isn't, I didn't get to go to a concert from my favorite band. This isn't, this isn't, I didn't get the car I wanted. This isn't any of that stuff. This is identity. This is the person that they are. And that's so much more important and so much more, I think, concrete and core to a person's being. I can understand that people think, well, it's kind of manipulative if an entire community, that being the trans community, always makes it into a let us transition or we kill ourselves. I can understand the manipulative nature of how that feels. But and this is really critical. What they're describing, again, I said all those examples before, they're not describing something frivolous. This isn't, when you hear kids who are, having trouble dating, whatever kids go through these days, this isn't like a thing they're just unhappy about. They don't like the person that they look at in the mirror isn't them. They don't see themselves. They see somebody else. And it's not this frivolous thing that we go, oh, you're just making a big deal because you want your way. No, they want to be their person, not their way, not any of that stuff. It's just, we need to understand the gravity of what this identity is and what it means to people.
Deserve help, but we also need to have a responsible conversation that is not using suicide as a means to push them down a pipeline before they have that comprehensive care.
So I have a question.
Sorry, Aris, I know you've been wanting to say something.
Yeah, no, because I have a big problem. Oh, yeah, no, so, I'm not an interrupter. What I'm going to say is we insult children, our youth, so much by taking away their autonomy and their own agency over their own decisions and insulting that they know who they are. Like, an adult knows who they are more than they do. No one knows who I am more than I do. Right. And it's always been that way. I've always known who I was. I've never felt like I was in the wrong body. I just had to adjust my body. And so I think taking away kids' agency and the right to their own body is, it's anti-human.
I have a question. Do you believe minors should be able to get tattoos or plastic surgery or consent to the list of other...
Don't minors, first of all, again, I'm trying to be as diplomatic as possible. These, again, are frivolous things. You having a tattoo is you wanting art displayed on your body. That's not your identity. You having your nose changed to a more attractive or more utilitarian, shape is not your identity. You can live without all of these things. You can't live as a different person.
I understand they are different things, but to what level do we... to what level do we give children bodily autonomy over everything they do? Because here's the thing, children need barriers in childhood development. You need barriers, and they need a safe way to push against those barriers. And I worry with the current medical system that instead of giving them a safe way to express themselves and push against barriers, we have taken some of those barriers away. And that is why you see more detransitioners, because those barriers have been lifted.
Yeah, they're not just dole.
Also, whenever people say that there's more detransitioners now, right? They'll say, like, we're seeing more and more detransitioners. Yeah, that is correct. You are going to continue to see more detransitioners. And the very simple answer to that is because there are more open and out trans people. As the community grows, as the community becomes more visible and more representative of its actual populous number, you're going to see that detransition number also rise. A lot of anti-gay, anti-trans, all of the kind of anti-LGBT activists and pundits and everybody else always talks about, oh, we're seeing this rise in in gay people, in trans people. Why are we seeing it? It's because it's because degeneracy, it's because wokeism, it's because this, it's because that, right? When the actual answer is no, you're seeing a rise because people feel comfortable identifying publicly as their true selves. You're going to naturally see the number of trans people rise as transitioning, as that identity becomes more accepted in society. Trans people 10, 20 years ago did not have the visibility that they have today. They did not have the discourse was not centered around them. Their rights were not talked about almost ever. Trans people 10 to 20 years ago were jokes, were the butt of jokes, were punchlines, were aberrant. But they're not now. And with that acceptance comes the ability to the permission to self-identify as that identity, as that kind of person. In the same way that number is going to rise, the number of detransitioners are going to rise. Because there's always going to be a percentage of trans people that detransition. The key to this is what that detransition number is. And if that number overtakes trans people, or if we find out, that, transitioning is bad in some way, to which we never have, then we can have that conversation. But to assert that now, while there's still a deep minority for the detransition community, just keep that in mind. Like, it's not shocking that that number goes up. That's not a shocking phenomenon.
Pulling out surgeries for children, that's not happening
I had a
anywhere.
letter from a therapist in a single visit at the gender clinic office
And
before
that
I
was
had
abuse
the first.
from that therapist who did not
that's
psychoanalyze
awful.
the rest
That
of your
should not
issues.
happen.
Right, and that shouldn't have
because
happened.
your
Not
issues
happen
weren't
to you.
being trans. There were a lot of other issues that you're
I have a
addressing right
diagnosis
now.
of gender dysphoria as
And
well.
you shouldn't. You were misdiagnosed.
No, I have one.
Right.
Yeah, you had to get a second opinion, honey.
And how was how was I supposed to do that when my parents were told
That's
that I
not
would
your
kill
fault.
myself?
But your
Yeah, that's not your
parents,
fault.
your parents,
Their biggest crime in all this was trusting in a medical system that they thought would help me, and the professionals apparently not doing the right thing here.
I understand, but your
Yeah,
parents were
absolutely
responsible for the decisions that were made on your behalf.
I think that what this really highlights is the importance of you sharing your story, because what it shows is that you can't jump into these transitions, and you
Yeah.
shouldn't listen to these doctors that push you to transition
Right.
just
Nobody
because you're
should.
feeling a certain way.
And keep in mind, there's going to be doctors that push you into transition. There's going to be doctors that push you away from it. The person, like, I feel really bad for I believe their name was Luca. I feel really bad because they are trying to come at this in an earnest way and kind of getting dogpiled a bit, just because I think their examples are very anecdotal. But there is a point to be made in that we shouldn't blanketly trust the medical system. That is the medical institutions, the hospitals, the doctors. A lot of these people are in it to make money for sure, but we have to draw the line at trusting science, trusting data, and trusting peer review studies, stuff like that, because we have to come to some kind of answer. We have to address this, and we have to have some kind of direction on where to go on a lot of this stuff.
Social media brainwashes teens to believe that they're trans.
I have to agree on that one. Like, there's this thing about it. Right. Like, yeah, there's this play that they have.
I don't think that it necessarily brainwashes children, but I think there are a lot of people who get into being queer or trans because it's trendy, and I know that's a really controversial thing.
Social media does this around everything, unfortunately. That's why social media is so damn harmful.
Statement to make as a trans person, but I have seen it, I've experienced it, and I also find that social media, especially apps like TikTok, give a lot of these kids so much misinformation and lead to
Rapid
people
fire
thinking they're trans
misinfo
when there are much deeper issues, and everyone just wants to belong and find an identity, especially when they're young. You know?
I think brainwash is such a strong
that's
word
a very
to use
aggressive
there
word. I
when
would
it's
not. That's why I hesitated to step forward.
And that's why
yeah.
I would step in and actually say it's more so of like a social contagion.
It's just, yeah.
What got me to transition
No, damn it.
and actually say it's more so of like a social contagion.
It's just, yeah.
No, god damn it. Why do they flash that up so? Social contagion is the spread of emotions or behaviors from one individual to another, sometimes without awareness. Yeah, and that's like, yeah.
It's just, yeah.
And that's the,
What got me to
social media does that for a
transition
lot
in
of
the
things.
first place
For a lot
was
of things.
Social media. It had a grasp on me that there could be something else out in the world for me during that discovery. And
keep in mind, Matt Walsh and Michael
100%.
Knowles and
passed as a
other
female,
people say that
for
the being trans or the act of
6
transitioning
years
is
out
the
of the
social
7 that I was a
contagion.
transition-
No,
that I
it's
transitioned.
social media and
later
the
down-
and their desire to keep you on their apps by any means necessary. Like TikTok is a great example of this, because they are trying to keep you scrolling as long as possible. So in a way, they're going to just keep feeding you and feeding you and feeding you and feeding you misinformation, disinformation, just as much as they can on the topic that you're interested in. So if you had the inkling or thought like maybe you're trans, there is the opportunity, if you go on TikTok, to be pushed down that rabbit hole and kind of given all the answers to the problems that you're maybe seeking a community to form around, for support, or even just trying to find answers online. Because kids, we know these days, that's where they look for answers. They have a question, they Google it. If they're feeling a certain way, how many times have you typed into Google like, is it okay to feel this, or feeling like this, or whatever, and looking for some article or something to kind of give you a maybe I'm old, maybe people do that on like Instagram and TikTok and stuff, but either way, you go looking for answers to why you might be feeling a certain kind of way. And for kids these days, that avenue is social media, that vehicle is social media, I should say. But and yeah, and the social contagion part of it can be anything. The algorithm is the social contagion. The individual topics are, whatever you're into. It can be anything.
On the road, I went and paid out of pocket and talked to just a regular therapist, and she made me start questioning my own existence in a way, what I can do as a human being, not just as, a male or a female, but what can I contribute to the society? And it made me open up to maybe I was born as a male, and it feels empowering to me.
Yeah, I mean, I was heavy on social media. Like in my transition, Tumblr, that was the place to be for sure. And everyone was talking about their transition from my experience, and everyone was talking about a lot of mental health issues.
6 years ago, 2 years into testosterone.
And it was kind of being trendy
So
in
what
that
was
sense.
that? That was
when
like
TikTok came out, that was
2017?
like a whole nother world. And the biggest thing that I found with that is they weren't saying a lot of the negative things that were happening in their transition. There was always like a positive outlook on it, like I'm being who I need to be.
And keep in mind, the people who are making this content, I want to also stress, the people making that kind of content, the people who are celebrating their positive experience with transitioning, that's not really the problem here. The problem here is that TikTok isn't going to feed you the positive side and then feed you it's not going to inform you of these are the pros, these are the cons. If TikTok gets if in the algorithm, it gets the sense that you are looking for transition as an answer to, whatever, and it presents you with something that makes you feel good, you're going to keep scrolling. And because you keep scrolling, it's going to keep feeding you positive, 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 without giving you a nuanced, three-dimensional view of everything.
Like, this is great.
And again, I say this, it happens for a lot of different things. It's not just trans,
and I really went into depth
many different
of,
topics that you can fall down these rabbit holes
that
too.
I dealt with on that, and I didn't find anyone talking about that.
I personally didn't think I was trans till I saw earlier trans YouTubers. Before I was just gender-bending man. And for sure, I also feel like comparing yourself on social media to other people that are more beautiful and successful will create dysphoria.
Michael Myers?
And some people,
it will affect your self-image for sure.
Michael Myers is the shape.
Trans women that are all dolled up or had every possible plastic surgery they could ever get, you're gonna feel dysphoria. You're gonna be like, I don't look like that.
I mean, that's in general, though. You know what I mean? Whether you're cis or trans, everyone is
social media has
dealing
such
with
a,
that for sure.
It has such a bad impact on mental health.
I wanted to be that muscular dude, and I wanted to do that. So yeah,
it is such a bad, well-documented bad impact on people's sense of
yeah.
self
Social media
and
is
mental
fucking
health, so.
is
But
fucking
I also
cancer.
really quickly just want to
It's
say I don't want
mind
people to
cancer.
think that, social media is turning people trans.
Yeah, we agree with that.
All right, can the disagreeer step forward?
Yeah, okay, so my thoughts on social media and everyone suddenly looking or being trans. I think whoever is leaning towards that or looking towards being trans for answers was always someone that felt that way or felt some type of way about their gender or their identity or the way they present themselves. They're just gonna go that way. I know plenty of femme twinks who went the muscle queen pipeline. It's not a rare occurrence. And so just
Dude,
experience
like,
your life.
I'm sorry. I just can't help but you got to kind of appreciate the world we live in a little bit sometimes, in the sense that when I was growing up, there was not really, I don't want to say options, but there weren't a lot of formats for being a man. It was muscles, it was it was all the very traditional, very masculine mussels, beards, mustaches, big, all this stuff, right? Growing up, at least for me, we didn't have twinks and femboys as a thing you could be and have an identity that was validated and not derided. People looked at small people who would, I don't think, be called twinks these days, but look at smaller guys and see prey, see weak men, see these, bitchy, weak guys, and would pick on them. And I don't know what schools are like these days, but at the very least, I think that you kind of have to, I think it's good to kind of appreciate that twink really, as far as I've ever heard anybody use it around me and in circles, it's not really derogatory. It's descriptive, but not derogatory. Even femboy isn't derogatory, really. It's simply a way of describing somebody, kind of a format that they fit into. But at least in my opinion, that's so much more freeing, I feel like, for people to be the way they are. For if there are men who, if there are boys, there are men who are more, who want to look that kind of femboy look. God damn, man. Fucking, at least you have, I'm glad that people have that format to look to and go, that's the thing. That's kind of how I fit in. That's where I'm at right now. I'm just saying, like, this is kind of unrelated, but I just think it's a positive development that we have different kinds of men now. We have twinks, we got femboys, we got bears, we got all sorts of stuff. And I appreciate that, because growing up, we didn't have that. Growing up, you were either, let's be honest, you were either an attractive traditional man or you weren't. Those were the two things. You were mostly either handsome or ugly. And I'm glad that we have different ways of describing fellas these days. That's all. And that's all. I just
try not to take social media seriously, because no one is advertising their failures. It's all fake.
Yeah, but I think it is also important to say that, like, social media is very, very effective. I mean, I personally scroll on TikTok and I'm like, do I have OCD? Do I have autism? Like, all these different things. And, like, it can suck you in. So it's important to be aware of those things.
I have a question for Samantha.
Yeah, if you've ever gone on WebMD, that's like all it is.
You've inspired people to transition?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that I've inspired people to believe that it's okay to be transgender, it's okay to express themselves, and it's possible to live a happy and successful life.
How do you feel about the fact that some of them are going to regret the body modifications they got and going to have, like...
I think that they should go to a doctor that is well-versed in gender care and
Yeah,
have the appropriate psychoanalytic analysis done beforehand.
That's like one of those, like, hey, I wore this really nice shirt, and then somebody's like, whoa, you inspired somebody to buy that shirt. What if they buy it and they don't like how they look in it? You gonna feel bad? It's like, well, no, I can't control that. Like, I can give you the option, I can give you the space to explore your personality, your being, but I can't make that everything to you. I can't make you fulfilled. That, like, that's not this person's job, and they're not ever going to be capable of that. Even if somebody, messages in and, were to comment and say, oh, you opened my eyes that I was trans and that, and I was able to do whatever. They're still not really responsible for that. They gave them the space, and the permission to explore an aspect of their personality, an aspect of their being, and that person took it.
That's not my
And
problem.
I feel like a lot of folks are going to social media looking for possibility models. They're looking to see if they're okay. I know for me, when I was very young, looking to see if there were other people like me, because for a long time I thought that I was
the only one.
Exactly.
I thought I was the only
right.
one.
And so feeling like that, like suicide was a thing for me.
Me too.
Right. And so when I did see a possibility model, when I did see somebody that looked like me, that put me in a space where I was like,
Humans are social creatures, man.
Okay.
Sigh of relief.
The you know,
I will say there's also
the
a difference from like showing people that
isolation.
you can have a positive life. And then
Isolation
telling
is a
them what
killer
to
for
do.
humans.
So I think you on your channel are kind of like, hey, look what I was able to do and how this made me feel, versus like, you should do this because I did this.
Right.
So I
And
think,
also, I try my best to be very upfront
right,
about, you know, the
because
issues
we
of
can't help if
transitioning.
someone's going to
And not everyone's going to be a great
that's inevitable.
Yeah.
We're human.
a great
And to jump on one
communicator
more
in
thing
that
with
regard.
like,
Not
if I'm
everyone's
watching her
going to be the best
channel and
presenter.
It inspires me to transition. I have been watching white straight men be president for years, and I've not wanted to be president once. So I don't identify with that. If we're going to talk about brainwashing, let's talk about where we see things every single day happening a certain way versus someone just living their life authentically.
People with gender dysphoria need therapy, not surgery.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that one.
Well, yeah.
I've been convinced.
If you have gender dysphoria,
It's potentially both, though.
Yeah.
I think everyone with
You
gender
get therapy
dysphoria
and
needs to
maybe
go
you
through
need surgery.
therapeutic process and mental health care before they make that choice for themselves.
Exactly.
I personally confused a lot of my gender dysphoria for body dysmorphia because no matter how much I feminize my body, till today I still don't feel comfortable in my own body. And now, like looking
That's unfortunate.
among like members of trans community, I see that people keep on getting more and more surgeries. The surgeries
you
are
ever
no
seen?
longer affirming.
There's
You
like
can just
a
tell that this person is, like,
girl
struggling
who
with
got
body
a bunch of
image.
surgeries to
I
look
was able
like
to get on
Barbie,
estrogen pretty quickly
like the
when I
doll.
was 22.
It was
and
wild.
My mental health declined afterwards, and
Also, keep in mind, this is a conversation about minors. This person did all of this at 22. They just said so. You're an adult. Not to be mean, but you kind of made the wrong. Like you were a full adult and you still made that mistake. People make mistakes with this sort of stuff, but I just don't really know if this person's really applicable to the conversation.
I attributed it to being still in the wrong body, needing more body modification, end up getting sex reassignment surgery.
Sorry, I'm gonna
Needs to
restart
go through
really quick.
therapeutic process and mental health care before they make that choice for themselves.
Exactly.
I personally confused a lot of my gender dysphoria for body dysmorphia because no matter how much I feminize my body, till today I still don't feel comfortable in my own body. And now, like looking among like members of trans community, I see that people keep on getting more and more surgeries. The surgeries are no longer affirming. You can just tell that this person is like struggling with body images. I was able to get on estrogen pretty quickly when I was 22, and
Yeah, this person
my
got
mental
this
health
stuff done
declined
when they're an
afterwards,
adult.
and
So
I attributed it to being still in the wrong body, needing more body modification.
Also,
end up
yeah,
getting
if you go on
sex reassignment
estrogen
surgery. I do believe that
after your
transition was
puberty,
sold to
that's
me as a hardware fix
not shown
for
to
my
have
mental issues that were not
as
addressed.
good of
I still struggle
results.
with internalized homophobia that pushed me into transition in the first place. I struggle with borderline personality disorder, body dysmorphia. I'm on a spectrum, and I'm ADHD, and I have all those issues that were not helped, and I was still struggling with them after transition, and I still do. Overall,
I gotta ask. I don't know why. I don't know why they brought this person on. I'll be very, very honest. In a conversation about minors transitioning or not, I don't think this person is appropriate for this conversation, quite frankly.
after a few years, I came to a conclusion that I was not in the wrong body, that I'm a gender non-conforming man, and I am a feminine man. That's what I am.
I don't know if you guys have heard, but I've had a lot of binary trans people say that it's not a mental health issue, like if you're trans, and I know I don't agree with that. Like, I think there's a disconnect between the mind and the body. I guess I'm asking that. Like, it's like, do you think that it's a mental health disorder? And
I don't
needs to
think
have
being
therapy?
transgender is a mental
disorder,
health disorder.
right.
I think, gender incongruence is what they're referring to it as now.
Gender incongruence has been moved out of the medical and behavioral disorders chapter into the new conditions related to sexual health chapter, trans-related and gender diverse identities are not conditions of mental ill health, and that classifying them as such can cause enormous stigma. Yeah, because the idea that oh, you're sick, you're trans, you don't believe that you that your personality aligns with your gender presentation, like, you know, you're sick, you're not well, you're, you know, whatever these things. What is sick, what is unwell are kind of subjective to a degree, mainly because the way in which how we draw those boundaries are based on kind of our societal standards, norms, and needs to a degree, I would say. So in that way, because one could make the argument that, well, you're not in danger if you're gender incongruent, right? Like, you're not in danger of anything. What you're in danger is the effects that has, what state that leaves you in. That kind of malcontent with your presentation, with your body, with all of your identity, leads to something bad, which is you know, suicide, suicidal ideation. But the gender incongruence isn't itself the thing that kills you. It's the effect of it, basically.
It's listed as a
I don't know if
sexual
I'm saying it the
concern.
right
Like
way.
the
I'm not a
gender
doctor
dysphoria,
or
which is the
anything,
symptom that arises when you are transgender,
Yeah,
is a
it's-
mental
yeah,
health
yeah.
concern.
So maybe I'm thinking of, like, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
then in a sense.
And then
Yeah.
once you are diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and I feel like this is kind of what the prompt is kind of hinting at, if you do have gender dysphoria, the only treatment for that is transition.
Right.
Whether that be just a social transition, a medical transition, whatever transition fits you, that is the only way to heal your gender dysphoria. When I transitioned,
Certainly
the
a
first thing my mom
sliding
said to me
scale.
was, can't you just be gay? It hurt hearing that, but a big reason that she said that was she was afraid of what my dad would think.
But
he's always
if
been
they're
very,
gay,
very
they can't have big
conservative, very
titties.
traditional, you could say. He would make comments about trans people, about gay people growing up. So I always knew that he wasn't necessarily accepting.
I still hear stuff like that from like normal
So when it
people.
came down to me transitioning,
It's like side comment,
I
you know,
said
it's
to
like
him, I'm
offhanded
going to do this.
comments.
Either you're going to be the
It's
dad
rough.
that accepts me and supports me through it, or like goodbye. And he chose to support me, and we're closer than ever
good
now.
for him.
And I think a lot of us go through medical transitions to easier go through social transition.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And so a lot of our folks that do transition and may detransition, both
Yeah, keep in mind the
experiences are valid,
surgeries,
but also
you know, the surgeries just let
understanding
you
that we're
exist a
not
little easier.
mentally ill because we're trans.
Yes.
Right. And I think that there should be a psychiatrist or someone within behavioral health to be able to say, okay, you're in the right frame of mind to make this decision. But I want to just make it very clear that trans people are not dealing with mental health because they're trans.
Absolutely.
I disagree. I feel like transgender is definitely, and elderly trans people afford for it to be classified as mental illness, so it's covered by insurance. Otherwise, why are you getting the surgeries to?
Because
but
of
if it's not a
dysphoria.
medical condition?
The dysphoria is a medical condition.
It is, but it's in your head. I would say that you have some kind of mental disorder if you're
You're
trying
right.
to mimic a stereotype of opposite sex. to
Okay, but
pass
it's
in
not a
society.
mimic. It's
The treatment
aligning.
for this mental illness is to transition.
I have a question though, because I have a gender dysphoria diagnosis. I always have. But I'm still where I am today.
Can I give you my honest opinion? I think that you were probably misdiagnosed.
I
and
don't
that-
think I was.
So you,
Do you
do
feel
have gender dysphoria?
in your body?
I certainly do now.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
I
because
mean,
of the
you
changes that you made.
want to talk about now, but at the time,
At the time, did
at the
you?
time, I genuinely believed I did. I thought it would save me. And then looking back, I realized that my dysphoria stemmed from some severe trauma that was not.
Yeah, so, but yeah, that's what she was saying, is that you're misdiagnosed then, which happens, sadly, but it does happen. It's not impossible.
Handled.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that mental health step is so important.
Yeah,
Because I've heard this from several other, mostly female detransitioners who we had some form of pretty bad trauma that spawned gender dysphoria symptoms.
Yeah.
and we can disagree about misdiagnosis of something being labor, but it felt real at the time for me.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it did. I didn't mean
And
that in a
no, I know.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where that's where the mental health treatment really needs to come in and get to the root of that issue, because oftentimes, specifically with the detransitioners I've talked to, that was ignored. You know, I came out to my parents in a mental health facility after telling the therapist that I thought I was transgender. And she told me we had to tell your parents so that way you can get the help you need. It led to me seeing a gender therapist who, honestly, the issues I was facing were never addressed. To this day, no one ever addressed the fact that I had severe, like, trauma and exploitation going on as a young teenager. Instead, I was kind of just...
Yeah, that's... Unfortunately, this is kind of the case for a lot of people who seek therapeutic treatment. Unfortunately, in any field proctored by humans, there's going to be these people who fall through the cracks, who don't get the right healthcare they need because they're not aware of the healthcare they need. And sometimes whatever therapist they're seeing also isn't aware or capable of offering them the healthcare, the guidance, whatever that they also need. I don't think that what this person went through is didn't happen. I certainly don't think that it's uncommon, I guess. It's just simply, there are always going to be bad doctors, there are always going to be bad therapists, there are always going to be imperfections in any medical process. This is something that every medical process, even in ADHD diagnosis, everything, there's always these very clear again, I say cracks in the system, but I just don't really know another way to explain it. There's always going to be this. The goal is to keep that to a bare minimum as possible. But yeah, and again, this person might have had gender dysphoria, they might not have, but if that came on because of other things, it's because those weren't addressed. And because they went to go see a gender doctor because that's what they communicated, what they thought they needed, then it's just this process is imperfect, and it's always going to be imperfect. And the best thing you can do is advocate for, safeguards and for making sure that the process is as perfected as you can get it. But there's never going to be a zero rate of detransition. It's never going to happen. It's never going to be zero.
Just affirmed in, you believe this, and instead of even just a little pushback, it led me to the point where the very first medical intervention I ever had was a double mastectomy at 16. A few months after that, I started testosterone because it was the next step of what I was supposed to do.
God intended for there to be only two genders.
Tragic.
Okay, you go first.
Okay, so as a Christian, I truly believe that God created male and female, and he created that throughout life, throughout the nature, throughout the wildlife, throughout, Earth itself.
Right.
And then the arguments come up into the ocean sides of, well, there's these asexual creatures and stuff like that. Well, they were designed that way for a reason, and we humans were not designed to, we were designed to procreate and be able to bring life back to the earth, because we live and we die, we live and we die. It's a rotation of a process of life in itself, and it's
that is what
journey.
all animals do.
So
yeah.
I truly do
they
believe
do all
that there
live
is
and then they
male
die and then
there
live and
is
then
female.
die.
But I can respect people's choices. However, that's where I stand on it.
Well, I'm not Christian, but I do believe there's only two biological sexes, and somehow that's how it's been designed, whether it's by higher power or by evolution. I do believe gender expression has been on a spectrum for
you know, it's funny. If anything, it's evolutionary efficiency. Even though, again, there are asexual people. There are, you know, people with, you know, not with, you know, divergent sex traits, stuff like that. It's not that there's anything wrong with them. They're just different, really. And it's kind of the understanding of like, well, if they exist, if suddenly there was this huge spike of asexual or divergent, you know, people, what, you know, we make space for those people. They need to exist like everybody else. You know, the purpose of humans, I think, I personally, and this is where I'll say my belief, I personally think we've gotten past our purpose is to procreate. I think our purpose is a lot grander than that and a lot bigger than that now. But that's just me. I mean, you know, that's just
centuries. So
that's
we do
broad
have
belief.
References to people who've been cross-dressing. We have references to eunuchs. And as somebody who went through transition,
Don't eunuchs like chop their dick off?
when I
Isn't that what
started
that
into
is?
testosterone, it's almost like reminded me of my original blueprint. And I feel like I went against my original blueprint and I did a lot of damage to it. And I just cannot go back to who I was, because without my testicles, I'm just too far gone in my transition. So that's where I'm at.
Can the disagree step forward?
Yeah, you know, we have historically spent more time focusing on and celebrating several genders. There are several different cultures throughout the world that
very thoughtful,
that celebrate the different genders, and to negate the fact that they exist and to negate their validity is just wrong.
There are as many intersex people as there are redheaded people on.
Intersex is an umbrella term used to describe a wide range of natural variations that affects genitals, gonads, hormones, chromosomes, and reproductive organs. 1.7% of the population is born with intersex traits.
On the planet, I can name 12 people at the top of my head who are born intersex. So to pretend like there's man and woman is just erasing an entire group of people. The God you speak of, the first God that intersex people get to meet is the doctor, because it's up to their discretion of just what you're gonna be when they mutilate their body to be a man or a woman, and that is not fair.
Right.
Right, and I think also gender and male and female is not the same thing.
Biological sex are different things.
Yeah, we're talking about gender, which is like gender identity, the social aspects to being a man or a woman.
Sex is a label, male or female, that you're assigned by a doctor at birth based on the genitals you're born with and the chromosomes you have. Gender is much more complex. It's a social and legal status and set of expectations from society about behaviors, characteristics, and thoughts. Yeah, you know, if you ever heard somebody say real men do this, real women do this, that's why nobody says real males do this, real females do this. They say real men, women, because there are expectations that are societally designated that are not universal, but there's a lot of crossover amongst many different cultures. People will say that they're universal, but they're not perfectly universal. There's maybe a few that are, and even then they're not universal. To say anything is universal is unfortunately a pretty big over calculation. Almost nothing when it comes to humans is universal. We can look at a majority, sure. We can look at a plurality. We can look at most, or whatever whatever adjective you want to give to that, however you want to describe that. But nonetheless, gender is just referring to general societal characteristics, traits, behaviors, kind of what your society needs. Whereas male or female is what we, when you come out, the word we use to describe you based on what genitals you have.
Woman, but male and female dictate sex, so like body parts.
I disagree with having sex and gender being two different things.
Okay,
I believe them to
fact.
be one. So I believe that there is, they're the same, they're one and the same.
Then why are they
They're
two
not
different words?
Different, but we have evolutionary problems within the humanity, because I also see that there are intersex animals that do exist, and that's how they're born. but I also do believe that the initial design was for man and woman, and then somewhere along the way, viruses, mutations, diseases, plagues, all that type of stuff that we have in the world does play a part back onto the world itself. But I believe the initial intent was for God to create Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. I'm just gonna say it.
That's homophobic.
I know it sounds homophobic, and I understand
No,
I'm
it
hitting.
is
homophobic.
That's okay.
Homophobia made me transition, and that's what you're perpetuating right now. I grew up in a very homophobic family, and since I was
that was triggering for this person, which is fair. The whole like, well, God created Adam and Eve. I don't really have that much to say to it besides that's just your opinion, man. And I'm sorry, but I'm not okay with us building structures, building social norms around your feelings. It's just not what we do, at least here in the US. In secular nations, we've decided to put dogma, suspicion, all that stuff aside in favor of what can we prove, what can we observe, what can we recreate.
As a kid, I was always brainwashed, said gay is bad. My parents were not happy that I was naturally feminine. They always tried to make me more masculine. They tried to give me to masculine sports. I was mercilessly bullied at school for my femininity, constantly being told that I'm not
you're
a
an
real
incel?
man,
I
that
did
I'm
not
a
know that.
sissy. And
You
when I
should
came out to my parents
reconsider
as
that.
gay, they took me to therapists and tried to do pretty much conversion therapy on me, which failed.
So I don't believe
I can
in God.
imagine.
I believe in people that exist right in front of me, and I believe they should have the right to exist. And so
I'm not saying they don't have the right to exist. I'm
no,
just
but
saying,
I mean,
I'm just saying that was the
they weren't
initial
mistakes
intent.
either. They're just here the way you and I are here right now, and they are who they are, and we have to accept people as they are.
Right, and there are biological differences in trans folks. When we look at the brainstem, our brainstems are different. Like that's
Neurologically.
Right, neurologically, we're different.
Yeah,
and
male
so
and female are different, exactly.
Trans people are different.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, while he's correct, there is like the understanding that males and females are actually no. Now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever actually seen any evidence that there's such thing as a fully male or fully female brain. We do see similar traits among most females, same with most men in terms of chemistry and in terms of some developmental development, my fucking dumbass, in terms of like developmental growth in males versus females and even males and other males. But in terms of like the actual human brain, from what I understand, and I don't have a deep scientific knowledge of this, almost everybody's brains are like not at all what's the word, mirrored in other people's. Like we are all so very different. The way that it's structured, and like you have the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, all of that stuff seems to be the same, but almost everything else seems to be rather different. And even so, we can say that, oh, well, we notice these trends in males and females that kind of, show trends amongst both those groups, to which one has to ask, when did we start studying that? And was that before or after the effects of social conditioning? Over the course of thousands of years, if all of the females in a society, in some fucking village in the middle of nowhere, if all of the females are bred to a degree to act a certain way, to kind of what's the word I'm looking for, to play a certain role in society, it makes sense that I think it tracks that if you go and look at their brains 200, 300, 400, 500 years in the future, after that village starts, after that society begins, you're gonna be like, whoa, a lot of these women show a lot of very similar trait. A lot of the females show all these very similar traits. I wonder why that is. Well, we can chalk a lot of that up to evolution and evolutionary development. There is a aspect of that that I think also needs to be accounted for. But anyway.
They've found a distinct difference in the
white matter.
cortex.
There is no biomarker for trans. Some brain scan of some gay males is identical to female brain, but there is no biomarker for trans. Please don't spread misinformation.
There is science that hints towards it. It's just not confirmed.
No, there's research.
So therefore, it falls under the belief that there is, but there is no scientific fact to back that up, which therefore I believe that God's initial intent was to create male and female.
If God
I really
intended
get irritated with religious
if God
people.
exists and in
It's
the way that
always-
you believe and just
It's
intended
always
to
this
make
like, well,
male
I
and
believe
female,
it.
then
You can't
we
disprove
wouldn't
it.
be-
Therefore,
I believe
Intersex
in,
people
It's
would
very
in a
irritating.
higher power, right?
It's hard
of
to
my
have.
own.
It's hard to have
and God
discussions.
is not this thing that creates rules and binary situations and laws that can be broken or really made. We're just all here.
Yeah.
You know, like I was born in a female body, but I was never a girl. Never, ever, ever. I can't explain why, but that is my truth. That is the fact. That is who I've always been. And there's no way that I'm gonna look up at this guy at some guide and be like, oh yeah, you made me as a mistake.
Transitioning improved my sex life.
Interesting.
Who wants to start?
So that's I was about to say that's a personal
I'm
one.
embarrassed.
Not to say that my sex life was bad before, but I think transitioning and coming into my body and feeling comfortable in my skin allowed me to open up more and allowed me to not only
that makes
be
sense.
better in bed, but also
Sex is certainly better when
explore what my sexuality looks like.
when like you know
Insurance also, like-
you're being yourself.
Made sex really complicated for me too, because I'm a straight guy and I pass very well, and majority of the women that I've been with, I would have to eventually kind of like break it to them that I was trans and deal with a lot of rejection. And with somebody, I would never let girls touch me or see me without clothes on. Not having a penis made me feel inferior as a man, and that no one would want me, which is why I like rejected that part of myself and never.
Which that's like a big experience with that's like a big experience even for men. There are men who have insecurities about the actual penis that they have, that they're, you know, embarrassed or you know, not proud of. That's a phenomenon that's not even exclusive to trans men.
Never even let
You know,
it
there are
be
guys who are
loved.
like
It took
a small
lot
dick.
of
It's
really
like, nah,
accepting
dude.
that people
Celebrate
were
your
going
dick.
to accept me,
Dick's great.
and be attracted to me and love me and want to give me pleasure regardless of what was in my pants. And that took a long time. It took until I was like, I think I was 21 when my ex-girlfriend and I started dating. From that point on, I realized that just letting someone love me was half the battle. And once I let that piece come into play, I mean, it changed my life.
Do you want to go? You want to go?
Oh, nice.
Y'all can go. I'll go last.
I mean, so even though I detransitioned, in the beginning, especially when I was on hormones,
yeah,
like,
there's one
it
of the
increased my
detrans
sex drive
people.
a
That's
lot,
interesting.
and there were a lot of aspects to that was like enjoyable to explore my fluidity for sure. I was able to date a lot of people, and I think like from detransitioning, it's like the opposite of that. Like my sex drive completely changed.
Yeah, that sucks.
In a way that like there's good aspects to not being horny 24/7. It helped me be more comfortable in my body, even with detransitioning, which sounds weird, but like having a trans male body was like so different from the norm. So like I had to accept certain parts of myself. So like even with detransitioning, it helps me accept like certain parts of myself that I don't have still.
Absolutely.
I did identify as a gay man before I transitioned. And like those relationships, I feel like I always kind of had like out of body experiences when we were like intimate. And even after I transitioned, before I had body surgery, just like the anxiety and the dysphoria that I would feel whenever I was intimate, or like a partner would try to be intimate with me, was just like crippling.
Yeah.
So then when I had surgery and I felt more affirmed in my body, and you know everything it feels right to me now, I'm finally able to have those intimate connections with people, and you know, form those deeper bonds. So it's really helped me a lot.
I'm so happy for you. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
When I came out as trans when I was 18, I moved to Miami, and it
Oh,
wasn't
no,
until I got my
Miami.
gender-affirming surgeries where I was
Not a fan of Miami, for the
like, where I
record.
did like lose my virginity because I was just not comfortable doing that. I was like, I'm not presenting in my best light, and I think I could get there.
Yeah,
with
for me, it was
somebody.
like, I'm not fitting the role that I'm supposed to play in this
Yeah, no, it's
relationship.
it felt weird, and you also attract a different type of partner. Back in my day, I used to attract what we call a chaser versus
A
someone
person
who
who
is
dates
genuinely
hooks up with a
attracted
certain
to
type of
the
person,
female
such as a
form,
trans
which is
person.
someone who I wanted to like.
Just
that's
as
the
trans
role
people,
I
sorry.
felt. And so that's where I was comfortable. And now
I've heard that gets thrown around
in Virginia.
a
Like
lot.
Virginia, the T word did not exist.
Hey
That was in
there.
Jerry Springer
Hey.
and Maury Povich, and that's where that stayed. no one.
Hey,
was
I'm from
trans.
Virginia.
So I transitioned when I was about 18. I moved to Miami, and my joke is that I hit the tarmac, and I said, I'm a woman, by the way. I remember I came out to my mom, and I was super nervous because I'd
What if
come
I
out
went to
as
school with this
gay
person? That'd be
years
fucking
and years
wild.
before, because that was so much easier. But when I
There's
came
like
out,
no
I
ch-
remember
I guess
my
there's
mom
not
just
no
asked if I
chance.
was happy, if I was healthy, and if I was going to finish school because she had already paid for it. And I said yes.
Can the disagree step forward?
Transition definitely ruined my sex life. I was fine with my penis, but a year after estrogen, I felt like that part didn't belong on me anymore.
Again, I seriously
went ahead and had sex
don't think this person is
surgery.
appropriate for this
After
conversation.
that, my sex drive was
Mainly
gone
'cause
pretty
they're
much.
not
I kept on having
trans.
complications. I wasn't able to keep my neo vagina open despite rigorous dilation. I had multiple revisions.
And also, I kind of, I don't know.
just got some of
I
my
don't know.
sex
I'm not the
drive back
arbiter of who gets to have
last
these
year when I started
conversations. I just,
detransitioning with testosterone,
I'm
but
not
it's
sure
kind
if
of
any of
traumatic
this is
to have male sex drive back without
appropriate
my
since
penis.
they didn't transition.
Also, I want to say that sexuality
when
is
they
fluid.
were
My
younger
sexuality has
or
definitely changed
whatever.
once I
So
lost my testosterone.
anyway, I'm just nitpicking a bit.
Before, I was strictly attracted to men. After I lost my testosterone, I was attracted to people in general.
Love their hair though.
because
Their hair's
now
phenomenal.
I didn't have
It's a lot of
this, like,
fun.
male sex drive, so I couldn't relate to men as much. You know,
I
they
like the
wanted to have sex,
green.
but I just wanted to hold hands and cuddle. And now my body dysmorphia / actual gender dysphoria as well is worse than ever before. I do feel like I'm stuck in a surgically created body. I just don't think I've been really myself by trying to become a woman. Yeah, so transition did take a lot from me.
Must be
I'm
really,
sorry.
really hard. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
If you had like found the results that you desired in the beginning, would you feel differently than you do now?
No, because I realize I just miss being a man, you know, I just miss being obsessed about sex and money. I don't want to do the whole emotional thing. And I'm talking about stereotypes.
See,
okay?
I just,
so
you
I
see,
regret-
I just, I
I'm
don't,
just like now I'm a medical patient for
I don't
life.
know,
Also,
man.
having sex
I
with
just,
back, it just reminds me that
I don't
lost
know
all
if this
the
person's
fears I've
really
been having, whether
applicable
it's
to this
chasers.
conversation.
I definitely have internalized homophobia. So internalized homophobia also pushed me into transition because I felt like chasers weren't good enough because I wanted to be a woman. I wanted to escape my homosexuality. But now I realize
Luigi.
at the end of the day, I'm a gay man and I'm still living with internalized homophobia because therapists actually never helped me with that.
It's fascinating that you say that because I dated men and women, and in my transition, I felt like I had an internalized homophobia when I was with men because I didn't feel like a gay man. And that was really hard for me to like figure out because I had this
Dude,
journey for so
like,
long. And
people are fucking
a lot of sexual
complicated.
experiences were
I
good,
think the
but
most
I was on
irritating
Grindr,
thing about,
and I'm sleeping with these men and
talking with,
they're treating
like,
me how I want to be
watching
treated
like Matt
in a
Walsh
social setting,
stuff
but I'm
and
like, I was
some
really,
of
really
the
masculine in my
conservative
presentation,
angle on a
but
lot of
I
this
tended to
stuff
be
is
kind of feminine
is
in
it's
my
always
roles,
this desire to
within
make
sex.
humans
And so
very.
I think that also got me to realize that I wanted to detransition because it was a reflection of the relationships that I had. Like, to follow kind of some stereotypes, like I did miss being a woman in some of those like social settings, like with
Very
how women
quartered
interacted
off.
with me, with how men.
Very like. I find that whenever I watch Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, any of these people, a lot of the anti-trans folks, and same with even anti-gay folks from back when in my youth, right? I just feel like there was always this desire for everything to be simpler. Like the idea that humans are really complicated and our brains are so complex and everything else. I feel like it just scares these people. Like Matt Walsh is scared of trans people. not because he's worried they're gonna assault him or assault his wife in the bathroom, but because he's scared of that imagination and that the idea that people are not these simple things, that the world isn't good, evil, black and white, that it's all grays and it's all a mess. Like, I don't know. It's just
with me. Like, so yeah, that's heavily relatable to that for sure. So I do not regret my transition. Shocking, I know. That was like a really great time for me in the beginning. I really was able to explore and express myself in ways that I could not have done without hormones and surgery. I learned so much about how people treat people based on gender and looks in general. I feel like I would not be the person, especially the confidence and security that I have within myself if I didn't transition as presenting as a woman in this world. My dynamic with men in general is so much different. I mean, I was very insecure, very submissive, very quiet, and now I'm able to speak up for myself because of that.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, during my transition, I didn't actually.
I mean, this person is a Christian. Their sex life is probably trash to begin with.
Ever since I came back, my sex drive has been higher ever since, and I think it's because I'm no longer on the estrogen. My testosterone levels are increased after I changed back to being who I was originally born as, and it also kind of opened up my eyes to say, maybe I wasn't really a female. This is probably what I would like my future spouse to have, to look upon it. And I'm proud that I actually have that sex drive back again, because I felt like I lost it for a long time.
The LGBTQ plus community is not as accepting as they claim.
This I've heard things. I don't have an experience in this, so I'm probably I don't think I'm gonna have a lot of comments on this.
Musical chairs.
Musical chairs?
Yeah. I'm embarrassed to agree. That is true information.
There's still so much transphobia within the LGBT people in the LGBT community that hasn't been addressed yet.
Shoot, there's transphobia within trans people.
Absolutely. When I was transitioning in high school, I searched for acceptance from the cis hetero world. And now I feel like I'm doing the opposite and searching for acceptance from my own community half the time. Like when I was in college, the queer community on my campus hated me because I did like heteronormative like guy stuff. I played lacrosse, I was in a frat, but like I wasn't that guy, I guess, that they had in their head. And every time I would go to the LGBT club meetings, I would get like they would stare into my soul like I was just this awful thing. And it's always just made me feel invisible and small in whatever space I'm in. And I find that just really disheartening.
And it happens in a lot of other cultures and communities as well too. So
it's funny that you
just happens.
You mentioned like the transitioning in high school part and like that shift from
keep in mind with almost any of these kinds of communities, not just like the LGBT community, but even like Christian communities and stuff like that.
I did notice
people
that
gatekeep, people
when
are shitty to each other.
All of a sudden, it was like I wasn't welcome in spaces anymore.
Again, I said it earlier. People are complex, man.
That icky feeling of like you only want me here because of that. And you know, now I have the D-trans aspect where no community wants me. No one. Like I'm still part of the
D-trans.
I'm part of the LGB part, but I've lost people that I thought they liked me for me, and it didn't matter what I was.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, detransitioning was the thing that I've been called a traitor.
Yeah, me too.
You know, it's.
Well, I feel like if you detransition, you're not a traitor. But if you're creating content to push people down that route, then I do think that that's not traitorous, but certainly. So this is one of those things where every time I feel like this happens with the younger generation. They put themselves out there, or they put like, you know, their opinions and all this stuff, and they put it all out there, and I don't know if they expect positivity or if they expect negativity, but I always find that people get really upset because they get pushback, because they get vehement pushback, and they're like, oh man, like people really, I talk about this controversial topic and a lot of people vehemently disagree with me, and I can't help but sometimes be like, you kind of got to accept that a little bit. You have to understand that if you want to talk about these topics, you have to understand that there are going to be people that are upset by your opinions every single day, every day. And the best thing you can do is just be honest and try to learn and not try to proselytize. That's also another aspect of some of the detransition stuff that I think could be worked on. Is I sometimes feel like there's a lot of proselytization. There's a lot of this, oh, well, I've been through it. My individual experience outweighs a lot of data that tells us, yes, this can happen, but you're in the minority. You still need to be there, but we can't allow the minority to set the boundaries for the majority, So that's all. It's just,
they don't want me. The rest of the world doesn't want me.
That's not true. That's not true.
It can often feel that way. It can feel isolating.
But it feels really isolating. Like, this is not a club.
It's not a club.
And it's not like a personality trait that I'm just taking up and...
Oh, God, preach.
God forbid one day I change my mind. I won't, but or something happens where I have to detransition. I would hope that the people who stood by my side through everything else would still be there for me because of who I am, period. And not because of an effing label over my head.
And even when I transitioned, I dealt with the traitor to everyone. It was, oh, you want to be a man and the patriarchy. And I was like, I get it, but also...
sure.
But
that's
what
fair.
I found very interesting was this divide between trans men and trans women. When I first started doing a lot of advocacy, I was told that just being in the space, that I was taking up too much room, that I was taking up too much space and don't speak and all of these things. And I was like, wait a minute, but I'm trans too, right?
Yeah.
This community also belongs to us too.
Right.
So that was something that I grappled with for a while.
Yeah, because there's always
hung out with a lot of gay women.
There's always a
and when
real
I
obsession with
transitioned,
trans
I definitely lost
women
my space
because
there, and that
it's
was
men.
really hard for me to navigate because
It's always really weird. It's why conservatives, and part of that is because conservatives seem to be more obsessed with men being, men transitioning to women than the opposite direction. There seems to be a deep bias or just deep interest in that specific direction of transition for whatever reason. I'm assuming it's latent homophobia and probably a little bit of insecure masculinity, whatever, but a bit of the patriarchy, I'm sure, but there is an obsession with trans women for whatever reason. There is just it is just so aberrant to them. And it's why we have to always be taught, why trans women we talk about a lot more than trans men. Even though trans men deserve as much of the conversation.
Really hard and difficult. And then when I got to the trans male community, there was a lot of competition. Who looked the best, who passed the best, that was very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Shoot, fortunately I had a full beard, so it was an easy,
I love how the trans man community is basically
I
the
resonate with
normal
trans men still.
male
I definitely
man
resonate with trans
community.
women from detransitioning and
Like,
gender non-conforming.
how many men, will do the I have a real beard, you have a fake beard, I have a whatever. This is stuff we rib each other as guys, who's more manly, all the rest of that stuff. And doesn't that show you that, is that not emblematic that these people are what they say they are? If when stuck into a room, when put into a room as a group, they're acting as manly as any of the men that I've shared locker rooms with, been friends with, gone to get drinks with, all of this stuff. Right? Yeah.
People. So it's where do I belong?
Weird position to be in because it's one community, like I said, doesn't really want you, but you don't fit in. You can't really go all the way back, so you don't fit in with the rest of them.
We just shouldn't have to categorize.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to float around, wonder where we belong.
We have the other detransitioners, but even then, we're all still vastly different individuals who have vastly different life experience, political views, religious beliefs.
Right.
You're
not supposed to
how we
detransition.
exactly.
That's no
experience how we
different
talk
with the
about
trans community, right?
In some ways, it's empowering because it feels like even though all this happened, you're being seen as an individual for almost the first time after, spending my high school years being lumped in by both the LGBT community and the rest of the people in a category. But it's also very isolating because you don't have really that community support that other places get.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right. That was good. I like that. That was really I was prepared for a little bit more contention, and not to say that there wasn't, but I think that was a really well balanced conversation for the most part. Yeah. Let me do like a few things, and then we're gonna do the outro, and then we're gonna get out of here. I didn't mean to do that. Do that. Okay. Well, I'll have to fix that. Whoopsie daisy. Anyway. Oh wait, I think I can find it in here. Right. Can I find it in here? Can I find it in here? Here it is. No. No, there it is. That's what I'm looking for. Add to playlist. Go back. Cool. There we go. Okay, cool. Sometimes. Okay. Anyway. All right, that's gonna be it for the night. Yeah. It's pretty solid one. Like I said, I really like that video. I thought that was well balanced. You can get. I thought we got a lot out of that. But anyway, if you've enjoyed any of what you watched, if you learned anything, lurked in chat, had a good time, just found some catharsis, just kind of enjoyed hanging out, I really appreciate you, and I implore you, if you could spare it, if you're down in if you're on Twitch, go ahead down and hit the follow button. It really helps out. And if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. That also really helps out. You can also either check out, if you're on either of those platforms, the opposite platform, where specifically on YouTube, clips and segments get pulled out, and on Twitch, obviously there's some videos, there's really not as much. There's just the VODs mostly on there. But yeah, either way, yeah, I do this every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. That might be changing in the future, not 100% sure. There might be a slight change in terms of my do an afternoon thing, but you'll be aware of that when I finally make a decision on that. But either way, you all have a lovely night. I'll see you all tomorrow. Goodbye for now.